their knowledge.
Heiser added that any planet capable of supporting NASA would need to be able to generate a steady stream of financing to meet the agency's $18 billion annual budget.
The important thing is we just need to be patient. There's a limitless number of planets in the universe, and eventually we'll find one with the resources to support our work. We just have to, right?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Hey, Free Talk Live here. Phones are open. If you want to join us, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 as we kick off the very final episode of 2021. So
good riddance.
Yep, yeah, good riddance. Hopefully 2022 will be a better year, but, well, if the governments have anything to say about it, it's hard to be optimistic.
Yeah, I was to say, very, very hard to be optimistic on that front.
There's, of course, a lot to talk about here tonight. Also, later this evening on our internet feeds, we will be doing an episode of Freer Talk Live to ring in the new year with you. And also, we'll be doing a giveaway of a BitBox, which is one of the open source hardware wallets we've been talking about over the last several weeks here on Free Talk Live. So if you are a member of the AMPS program over at amps.freetalklive.com, you'll have a chance to win that. And if you don't win that, that's okay. We're going to come up with a third way. We've got a third BitBox to give away sometime in the new year, and we haven't figured out how we're going to do that yet, but hopefully we'll come up with that sooner rather than later. But for tonight, we're just going to do one of the giveaways, and again, that'll be after 10:30 Eastern Time when we start that, and that'll be on our various different video services, primarily Odyssey. You can watch it over at watch.freetalklive.com. To start things out here tonight, we're going to get to a story about trusting the so-called science. But first, Chris, there's been an interesting development that is not really too surprising, given that they tipped their hand to it over the summertime. We reported on the White House talking with cell phone providers about censoring text message content. And now it may have come to fruition. Now there may be at least one cell phone mega corporation that is actually actively censoring text messages.
Yeah, thus far, T-Mobile they haven't announced it, but they have. It has been discovered by effectively the internet that T-Mobile is censoring at least one link that can be confirmed by many people. It's a story that's kind of blowing up that hasn't yet hit any kind of press, but there was some forewarning to this, as you were saying, over the summer. T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T may be asked to screen anti-vax messages, and in this particular story, breaking news, basically, what we know. This is what we know so far, basically. So let's see here if I can bring that up. And here we go. So it's like basically it's some 1984 stuff going on with T-Mobile, and it's presumed that there's other carriers involved here too. But this is basically from one individual who has actually tested this that we actually know. Yeah. So he's tried sending a link as a text messages. Now this is you may not encounter this if you try it yourself, because a lot of the messaging, if you're on like an iPhone or a Google phone,
it's going over the internet.
It's they get encrypted to other users. So if it's encrypted, this won't affect you. But if it's not,
you mean if you're using some sort of system like a Signal or Telegram
or iMessage?
I think if it's between two different Google devices, it won't be censored. But if it's between a Google and an Apple device, it will be, because it then has to use the normal unencrypted SMS.
Google is encrypting things? That's news to me.
I believe so. I don't know all the details. I don't think it's like end-to-end encrypted. I think it's just like encrypted to their servers. But the point is it effectively bypasses the infrastructure.
It's not doing SMS.
Yeah,
SMS is the cell phone messaging. I don't know what it stands for, messaging system or something. I don't know, but that's what's been in place for years.
It's integrated though in some way. So if the other user's also on, if you try to send an SMS and the other user's also on a Google device, it won't actually send an actual SMS.
It'll send over the internet.
Yeah, something of that nature. And I don't know all the details. I'm not a particular expert on that, but that's my understanding. So in this particular case, the message here is that's not being delivered is Canadian COVID CareAlliance.org. Media resources that Pfizer inoculations for COVID-19 more harm than good. And that's basically the URL that's being censored that we can confirm right now by many people. I thought it was, so this is what he's saying. I thought it was one of those fake news means going around, but just tested it and is legit with T-Mobile. So let's see here. What else does he say?
Now I'm curious as to what's the content about? What is it that is actually being censored?
It has something to do with COVID.
It sounds,
I got that much.
It sounds like they're labeling it as misinformation, even though I think so. I don't actually know. I can pull up the story here and see what it's about. I mean, obviously it says it's. So I think there was a study that was done, and they've concluded that it was basically the inoculations are causing more harm than good. Is what it.
And this is from Pfizer saying that? Pfizer itself is admitting that?
It's the Pfizer inoculations.
Oh, okay. A study was done on Pfizer.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it's looking like here.
What's the website it's from?
So this is actually a video that they're linking to, it looks like.
I got you.
So I don't actually, unfortunately I don't have anything.
Okay, but the point of this is to verify that we know somebody who knows, he's a technically adept person. This is a person who we can trust what he has to say, and he has verified what is being said by other people on the internet, and that is that T-Mobile is, at the very minimum, censoring this link, and that presumably means they are censoring a larger number of links, but we just don't know for sure how many of them.
Right, and this is basically the first confirmation that we've had that there is censoring not only going on the internet as a whole, like with places like YouTube and Facebook and things like that, but they've actually now extended it to this kind of 1984, everything is being censored, even text messages.
I remember when the story where they tipped their hat to it this summer first came out, my initial reaction might be kind of naive, but I was thinking, how can they do that? And then I was like, well, I guess because they own the SMS systems.
Correct. Yeah, the SMS is a cell phone text messaging system. And I don't know exactly how it works, but whenever you send a text message, it's not technically going on the internet per se. I mean, I'm sure it is shipped over the internet at some point, but it's going on the cell phone network primarily. It goes to the cell phone provider directly, and then they ship it to wherever it needs to go, so they have full control over what goes in and out over SMS.
Yeah, it's so SMS.
They can't control your data, however, because if you're using encrypted messaging services, all they know is there's an encrypted data stream coming from and to your phone, and they can't say anything about that.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure of all the details as far as SMS is concerned, but the way text messaging worked back in the day, because SMS is I mean, it kind of is text messaging, but it's kind of the modern text messaging. Yeah. I think it just adds the ability to like embed media or something and some other things.
That's MMS as they call it, I think.
Oh, no, that's something separate too, actually. So yeah, I don't recall all the details, but what I know is the original text messaging actually was using basically like the free space that it just kind of piggybacked off of what was already being sent. So it didn't cost the cellular providers anything when you sent a text message, even though they would charge you for it.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day. But I don't know about the newer stuff. But what I do know is that there is, when you send a text message, so to speak, using the interface, that there's stuff going on in the background where it may end up being encrypted to some degree, even if it's not end-to-end encrypted. So
yeah, well, the clear solution here
doesn't even work, basically.
Is to stop using the SMS system, is to make sure that you're sending your messages to your friends over some other form of messaging. Obviously, the more private, the better, as far as that is concerned. You don't want to go with Apple. You don't want to go with Google.
Don't want to go with Snapchat.
Well, what's humorous is actually it's not being censored on Apple and Google right now. It doesn't appear. Not yet, and that's the key word, yet. But T-Mobile is the first to do it, but it's probably just a matter of time before the others fall into line. And we already know that Apple and Google are censored. They're heavy on the censorship in other areas. So
it seems like Google must not be encrypted to their servers either, because they have a new thing that I keep seeing commercials about, that is a reply suggestion. So whenever you get a text, it will suggest what you should respond.
Because it's reading it.
Yeah, because it read what you received.
Well, they can, just because it's encrypted to Google doesn't necessarily mean that Google can't read it. Well, Google can read it because it's not end-to-end encrypted. Right.
Oh,
so.
okay.
All right, the number here is 603-283-6160 if you want to comment further on corporate censorship. I guess, like, technically censorship is when the government commits that act, right?
Corporations can do it too,
but
it's just not illegal.
They're
Especially
doing it
fascist corporations.
the behest of the government. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. It's New Year's Eve, the last night of 2021, and we will be here with you throughout it. Radio show ends at 10 o'clock Eastern, but we're going to do an after show later tonight, and so you can join us for that. Go to watch.freetalklive.com, and you can find us streaming live on Odyssey at that time. In the studio tonight, it is Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Chris.
Free Talk Live is sponsoring, or I guess sponsored by, I don't think we're sponsored by because they're not buying ads. We're just, we're doing a favor for Give Directly, and we're doing some fundraising for Give Directly. It's the first nonprofit that allows you to give money directly to people living in extreme poverty. They locate recipients who are in need, and they use mobile money to send them cash with no strings attached. In the last decade, Give Directly has given over $400 million to over 1 million people who really needed some help. And research shows that giving cash to people living in poverty can help drive a range of important positive changes in their lives, like employment, nutrition, health, and education. Plus, cash allows individuals to decide what they need instead of relying on aid organizations and donors thousands of miles away choosing for them. So if that's what you prefer, we agree, and that's why we're matching donations to Give Directly. They're helping families right now in Bomet and Kilifi counties in Kenya who are in need, and we're going to match up to $30,000 total. So if you want to help out, go to give.freetalklive.com, and you can do that there. Again, that's give.freetalklive.com, and yes, they do accept cryptocurrency at give.freetalklive.com. All right, so in the news, there's this, well, it's not really in the news, and I don't know if it will be in the news. I mean, you mentioned, Chris, this is kind of breaking information. We know somebody who is able to verify that T-Mobile is indeed censoring SMS text messaging with certain, let's say, content critical of COVID, critical of the government's official line on COVID, the Pfizer official line on COVID, anything critical of that apparently, or at least one link that we know of is being censored. And it's just, you send that link to your friend on text message through T-Mobile, and it's just not going to get there. So what do you do about that? Well, there are solutions. And I would recommend that you look into alternatives for contacting your friends and your loved ones, such as Matrix. That's one option.
That's definitely a good one.
Signal is another option, and Telegram is another option. These are three of the better options out there. As far as Matrix is a little bit complicated to get set up.
Wouldn't you have to run your own server?
No, you don't. No, you can join our server.
Ours.
Yeah.
Over at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's decentralized, so you can communicate with other people on other servers as well.
Correct. So. Yeah, federated, I think, is the right term. Because technically the server itself is obviously centralized. It's sitting somewhere in Iraq somewhere. But there are multiple Matrix servers connected together, and so therefore you can hop from one to the next.
That kind of it's not decentralized in that each individual user is like their own node, but
correct.
And that's what they mean by federated.
That would be true full-on decentralization.
Yeah, I think it's still like decentralized, sort of in the same sense that email is decentralized.
There are some interesting experiments out there with fully decentralized social networks.
Yeah,
and I've tried a couple of them over the last 2 years, and they're just not ready for prime time. In fact, I would say they're not even beyond like an alpha development stage. The last ones that I checked out, somebody told me about. Let's see here, what was it called? I'm trying to find. There was one that I just found recently. Oh, it's called Aether, spelled AETHER, and then I forget what the other one was. There was another one we experimented with like early last year before the federal government raided our studios.
Right. Yep.
I'm forgetting the name of that one too. They were kind of neat, kind of like a neat little tech demo. And
if I recall, I think you said it worked for one-on-one messaging, but not group messaging. Is that, or was that Signal I'm thinking of?
I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of like a chat. I'm not talking about a chat. I'm talking about social like networking.
Okay.
So the idea behind these things is you can post whatever thing you wanted to post. Like it would be kind of like a Twitter or whatever, but where you post like a little update or a picture or something like that.
Okay.
But you have to connect to other friends in order for them to even be seeing you in the first place.
So it's more like a decentralized Mastodon.
Yeah, you could look at it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mastodon, for those who don't know, is like Twitter, basically, except that
it's centrally hosted on some server
Mastodon
somewhere.
is federated, and what you're talking about is actually decentralized. So
yeah, okay, I know what the other one was called. It was called Manyverse or Pub, I think, the Pub server. I think it was called Manyverse. if I recall correctly.
I thought that was the same stuff Mastodon's based off of. Is it the same protocol? Just somehow they make it more decentralized?
You're asking too many questions.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at it recently, but the idea is your posts would not go beyond like your social network, and your social network would have to actually come into contact with you or have a direct link to you online. Now, you can run a server, and therefore people can hop into that server and kind of make it easier to find people that they might know, but it doesn't require the servers in order to run, and it can transmit data over Bluetooth and over Wi-Fi. So therefore, if the internet is down, then as long as as long as people are sort of milling about and seeing different people, right? Like amongst your social network, you might see a certain number of people, and then somebody from that group might see other people, and so sort of through the natural workings of humans crossing across time and space, messages would then be transmitted between this
over the course of many months, I presume.
Over however long well, again, that would be if there was no internet over which to transmit. So the idea
I see. So it does use the internet if it's available.
Correct.
So potentially, yeah, okay. I see.
So it would be robust.
It
would be robust enough to continue on without the internet.
Depending how many people were on it.
Correct.
Probably much slower.
Yeah.
Without the internet. Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. And this Aether one, or Ether, when I tested that one out, it's more of like I don't know if you'd call it like a bulletin board, but like an anonymous posting board, if you will. And it's also, again, similarly decentralized, where there's no central servers whatsoever, but there just wasn't anything happening there. There was just almost no content. So I mean, very, very early very, very early level stuff here.
I feel like if you're saying that, it really is true.
Yeah. But these are important technologies, and I'm glad people are developing them.
Yeah, these are definitely. I think we need to see more people slowly begin to migrate and adopt some of these technologies. And I've actually been very happy with Matrix and its adoption in this past year, because we tried 5 years ago and it just didn't take off. But this past year it's really it's grown up, and it's seeing users, and not just in our community but outside our community too. There's a lot more people.
The tech is better. It's easier. It's more accessible than it was 5 years ago. And also, things seem more important now, I think, to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Because of what's happening in the world, because of what's happening with the insane crackdowns on freedom, COVID-related stuff. And in fact, I know, Bonnie, you wanted to talk about that. Coming up, we'll get into you have a story about trusting science. Of course, science is a thing that should always be questioned. So you should never trust science, right? Like, you should constantly be checking it.
Science is just not static.
And testing it, and prodding, and questioning. And the number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. When you hear people talk about trust science, it's really a religious statement, isn't it? Like, you should believe in their particular quote-unquote science, and don't believe any of the other scientists that might say something different. 603-283-6160. We can talk about that. Of course, you can share your thoughts here as well and take control of the airwaves. And if you've got a cool, decentralized social networking system that we haven't heard about, give us a call and let us know.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
When we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. One of America's most beloved stars, the actress Betty White, has died at the age of 99. She was a pioneer in the early days of television and went on to find fame in the Mary Tyler Moore Show and then in the role of Rose on the sitcom The Golden Girls. She remained active in show business throughout her life. Indeed, the Guinness Book of Records says she worked longer in the TV industry than anyone else ever. She won 8 Emmy Awards and only this week features on the cover of America's People magazine, previewing what would have been her 100th birthday in 2022. Our US correspondent Simon Mark says she held an unparalleled place in American cultural history.
I think it's impossible to overstate how far and wide Betty White's loss will be felt across America this New Year's Eve. And it's not just due to her longevity in the very hard business of show business. It's because really of her fundamental character, the twinkle in her eye on display in her seemingly endless chat show appearances. Always funny, always generous, and absolutely beloved by generations of television viewers here. In many ways, she's American royalty, America's grandmother, great-grandmother even, and at a time when there is so little that people here can agree upon, their love for Betty White might just bring them together as news of her passing is digested with the dawn of the new year.
The most damaging fires in Colorado's history have forced thousands of people to leave their homes. The wildfires quickly spread through a suburban part of the state Thursday into Friday, with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. William Denslow reports.
According to officials, more than 500 homes as well as a shopping centre and hotel have been damaged by the wildfires, sweeping through Boulder County. Governor Jared Polis has declared a state of emergency, calling the fires a force of nature. Around 30,000 people in the towns of Louisville and Superior have been told to evacuate, and officials say injuries and fatalities are likely.
Lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked for proof that Prince Andrew has an inability to sweat. The royal is accused of sexually abusing Giuffre as a teenager, an allegation he denies. Here's William Denslow again from New York.
Virginia Giuffre alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew at properties owned by Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell, who was found guilty this week of grooming and sexually abusing young girls. The royal denies the claims and has argued that a medical condition preventing him from sweating contradicts Giuffre's story. Lawyers representing her in a civil case have now requested proof of Prince Andrew's condition. His lawyers say the request amounts to harassment and that Prince Andrew doesn't have such documents.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. And you can bring up anything you want here. The number is 603-283-6160 on this New Year's Eve edition of the show. With you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
And don't forget, you can support Free Talk Live like Kat Cooper is doing over on our new Patreon, which we're calling AMPS, A-M-P-S, Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to get behind what we do here on Free Talk Live to help us get the ideas of liberty and decentralization, cryptocurrency, some of these cool techno tools that we like to talk about from time to time here on Free Talk Live, because it's important. You got to have the right tools if you're going to be able to get rid of the idea of the state, right? Like we have to be able to communicate without having centralized corporations standing in the way. And so every now and then it's important to have these conversations and update ourselves on what the latest tech is out there and what the most usable tech is out there, because the latest, it ain't always the greatest, but there's some interesting potential out there that's worthy of a mention. So you can share your thoughts with us here, 603-283-6160. And I did pull up some of the info because it was just off the top of my head. We weren't planning on having this discussion, but the tech that I've experimented with over the last year or two, as far as the full-on decentralization, because we like Mastodon. We've got our own Mastodon server. It is a self-hosted social media server that does basically what Twitter does, but without the mega corporation. And so we're running our own Mastodon server over at social.freetalklive.com. You can go there right now. You can sign up. You can post to your heart's content and follow other people on other Mastodon servers. Because, again, that's also federated, meaning that it's connected to other Mastodons out there, unless they've chosen to disconnect from us for whatever reason, which they can do, because that's one of the benefits of being federated is you can disfederate, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, the one great thing about this federation is that even if your server is defederated from some other server, there's still thousands of other servers out there that are not going to defederate you. So you can't be kicked off effectively of like you can get kicked off of Twitter, but you can't get kicked off of the Mastodon.
No.
Yeah. I like the part about our on Mastodon that is different from our Matrix. I mean, obviously they're both really different, but I like that
Matrix is chat, Mastodon is social media.
Yes, but I like that on Mastodon you can see everything your friends and people you post are following on one tab, but then you can also go to like kind of like a world news thing. I don't know.
Yeah, you
it
can look at
like
local. You can look at what's going on the local server that you're on. So you can see everybody that you don't follow and what they're posting on that same server. And then you can press the global tab, and it just shows you a straight up feed of whatever the hell else is on Mastodon,
and that's
which
fun.
is a lot of you never know what.
Yeah, I actually get I see stuff from multiple different communities that I'm part of.
Yeah.
So it's definitely Mastodon is like it might be in some sense the new kid on the block, but it's getting much more popular.
It isn't
than
even
it was
that
just a
new.
couple
It's
years
been around
ago,
for several years. Right? Like Mastodon.
It has, but up until like a couple years ago, there was nobody on it other than people in like the free software world and open source world. So
now you've got Donald Trump is about to launch his own Mastodon on what do they call it? Truth Social, I think is the site. It hasn't started yet, but that's going to be a Mastodon site.
Yeah. You've got the right, you've got the left, you got the libertarians on Mastodon. You got everybody seemingly these days on Mastodon because of all the censorship and all the the garbage that's going on in the world. And it's funny, it's a lot of this is a lot of the stuff behind Mastodon. Now there's multiple like implementations, like there's different tools. So and there's certain protocols, like they're all open protocols. But Mastodon itself is a lot of people who develop it are actually on the left.
They're leftists. Which is why they're mad.
Yeah,
they're mad about Trump adopting Mastodon, and they were talking about suing him.
Well, I think Trump got the idea from Ian, because Ian is always suggesting to Trump that he does it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to back off a little bit on that, or carefully phrase it. It's not that they're using it that they can sue over. It's that they violated the licenses. So assuming that Trump complies, there's nothing to sue over. But yeah,
now I'm not sure how they're saying that Trump is violating the license. But I haven't read the stories about it, so I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure either. I may or may not have read the stories in detail, or I may have just read the summary of it. But it's likely, I kind of have a feeling that they kind of jumped on, frequently people will end up releasing the sources for stuff, but it won't be the same time they release the binary. And I don't know if that happened or if they were announcing it, and because the sources weren't available, the left kind of, jumped on board about how they're going to sue because they don't like Trump,
Yeah. Well, the site's not even open yet, right? So it's just...
If it's not open, then I don't see where the violation would be.
Somebody found a back door at some point. There was apparently they had put the site secretly online and somebody found it.
Okay.
But anyway, let's go to Sydney. He's on the line in Pennsylvania. Sydney, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey guys. About the censorship of SMS messages. I experienced that very quickly back in November 20th. I use Android. I was switching to a new Android phone. I personally use Signal for my chats. But in this case, Signal is kind of a complicated switch over if you want to switch phones. So I didn't do it for a day or two. My girlfriend and I were chatting. I sent her a link to something I thought her brother could use, and she never got it. I was like, hey, what's going on? You didn't get the link? So I had to send it in a screenshot, and she got it. So we played around with it a little bit. If I introduced any characters into the link, it would show up on her side. If I used a message like if I said anything in the message and included the links, that whole message would not get sent.
Wow.
She wouldn't see it on the other side.
And what was the content of the link? What was the topic of it?
It's estudiobitcoin.com. It's for Spanish-speaking people, an introduction to Bitcoin. It's very similar to Bitcoin.com.
Interesting.
Wow. So hold on. So T-Mobile is censoring Bitcoin information?
So I'm a T-Mobile subscriber. She has Sprint. She uses iPhone. We play that same exact day. I sent her links like CNN. Those went through just fine. This link, it just wouldn't go through. And so we ended up joking. I'm looking at my text message log right now. We were joking about how, wow, it's a big surprise. That link wouldn't go through.
So, okay, let me ask you this. You're on some sort of Android device and she's on an iPhone?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense because that is again, this is what I was saying about how if it's encrypted by either Google or Apple, so if it's the same device, if it's two Apples, they can't censor it because it's not actually going over the normal SMS network.
Right.
But if it's between an Android and an iPhone,
unless of course Apple decides to start censoring things too, which they certainly want to do. Sydney, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Anything else you want to share tonight?
No, that's it. I would definitely recommend Signal.
Well, I actually can't find studiobitcoin.com.
Studio?
Studio with ESTUDIO Bitcoin.com. It's for Spanish speaking. It means like study Bitcoin.
Very good. Thanks, dude. I appreciate the heads up on that. The number here is 603-283-6160. And, maybe their excuse for that is, we're censoring Bitcoin-related sites to keep people from being scammed because there's potential scams out there, and so we're just going to censor
all Bitcoin
those sites. I don't know. It's still not okay.
Yeah, it's it's actually interesting, the censorship, and it's possible that is the case. I have actually had stuff that got rejected email wise, so I have a show called From Decrypted, and we send out a weekly newsletter just covering what the topics are that we covered in the show. And what I noticed is that some servers are rejecting mail if it has the word Bitcoin in it.
Oh my god.
So it is theoretically possible that they're just trying to protect their T-Mobile were trying to protect their users, but the fact that they're doing it for COVID stuff as well as Bitcoin stuff, there's a
it's really
it's very slimy. Yeah.
So I just wanted to update people because in the last segment I was mentioning some of the newer tech, and I just wasn't sure I was remembering the name correctly. Manyverse is the name of the thing that we tested out here in the Keene area last year. It is a decentralized social media. It's called Scuttlebutt is what it's based on, so I guess that's the protocol. But it's called Manyverse Pub Server. Their website, manyver.se. Manyver.se. It's called a social network off the grid. That one was pretty cool. Like, it has a lot of potential. It was mostly working. It was just kind of a little bit janky, a little bit kind of weird, kind of beta level. And it's still in beta, but definitely one to keep your eye on. The other's called Ether, and no one's using that one. More coming up.
You can't win if you don't enter, and you actually can improve your chances of winning a prize drawing if you wrinkle up your entry blank. I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com, and I speak from experience. Why this works: if they'll be spinning the drum before drawing, your entry blank will move around more than, and not adhere to, other perfectly flat entry blanks. And if they don't spin the drum and merely reach into a box full of other perfectly flat entry blanks, many of which are sticking together, yours will feel different to the person reaching in. When you win, act surprised. And if you're looking for work, this is a metaphor. For more tips on sticking out in a world where just too much blends into the blah, 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 hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free Talk Live.
My law is proposed as this. You cannot say how a movie ends before it has gone through its HBO run. This is punishable by death because I am so sick and tired of people spoiling movies for me that I think we should hang them.
Maybe like movies is a capital crime and books is like a ticket.
Violation.
Yeah, no, I'm with that. Misdemeanor for a book. I'm with that. I'll let you slide on that one. Okay.
I don't actually have
so movie.
But on Netflix, they just put them all out there all at once, so it encourages more binge watching.
Right.
And it's just a kind of a different way to release things. So how do you deal with that with your proposed law, Dan?
Look, I'm American. I don't think about laws before I propose them.
So we gotta pass it to find out what's in it? Let the Supreme Court interpret it?
Exactly.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open if you want to join us here. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Chris.
Bonnie, you wanted to talk about trusting the science. We're going to get into that here, and I do want to let you know that you can join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. All of the features that we have there for you are completely free, so head over there, enjoy those on us, and those do include our decentralized or more decentralized alternatives to the big tech censor-happy companies like Twitter and whatever other ones there are out there. So you can go to chat.freetalklive.com to check out our Matrix server and social.freetalklive.com for our Mastodon server, and then you will have more freedom to express yourself. In fact, we've never had to ban anyone from the chat server, which is nice because there's no one holding an axe over our heads. So we don't have to be, we're not held to some terms of service.
Oh, they'll delete our page.
Corporation. Yeah, they can't. They can't delete us, which is nice. It's a nice feeling. So that does mean you will encounter some ugly people in the chat server, and it is completely up to them.
Ugly people.
It is completely up to them as to what they create there. So
now one of the things that is nice though about this server, the Matrix server, is that there are other private rooms.
Yes,
and
you can
people
create
can
your
create
own
own room,
Yeah.
and you can promote that to other people as well.
Yeah, the old system that we had to create all the rooms, and we had to police the rooms, because if something happened in the rooms that was against the terms of service of the corporation, then they would punish us for it. And now we don't have to do any of that.
That's not even allowed anymore. They just kicked us off, right?
Well, yeah, they blew up our quote unquote server. So good riddance to them. It's been over a year now that we've had this Matrix running, and it's been a great year. So check it out at chat.freetalklive.com. Bonnie, what did you want to talk about tonight?
I have this by Tom Mullen from the Foundation for Economic Education. It's called The Author Who Warned Us Against Blindly Trusting the Science. It's Thomas Kuhn. Thomas Kuhn's 1962 work, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, revealed why we should not confuse scientists with science.
Okay.
Attacks on me are quite frankly attacks on science. said Anthony Fauci, to widespread ridicule or approval, depending upon which side you were on.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Fauci as a head priest in a church, and you replace science with God, then that statement becomes a little bit more clear, right?
Attacks on me are attacks against God.
Right. If you attack the Pope, you're attacking God, essentially, is what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, usually you're going to find differing opinions. And then usually they don't. Most of the time we're talking about theories. It's not 100%, right? And if you give it time, those theories have to evolve as we discover
new information,
right?
And that's why they're being tested constantly.
Right.
And that's the whole idea behind science, right? Like somebody comes up with a theory, they test it, they say, this theory tests out. And then somebody else comes by and says, no, it doesn't. I've proven that it doesn't, and here's how I proved it, and you can check my math, and right. And then somebody else comes by and says, "Well, your math is wrong."
And sometimes it's like, okay, you're 70% right with that original theory, and then over time it becomes okay, and that might even become practically useful for something, right?
Yeah, sure.
But 70% of the time you get to your destination because of, I don't know, some sort of GPS technology, but then over time it gets improved as you learn more about triangulation or something.
Yeah, you get closer to the truth.
Right. Yeah. And then eventually, you get 99.95%, right?
But when you have some priest like Fauci saying that he is the science, he is the embodiment of, quote unquote, the science. We're talking about a religion.
Yeah, and if anything, Fauci has done a lot of harm to science in general over the last few years just by his stupid lockdowns that he promoted. I met a woman when I was at work at the Mighty Moose Mart, and she's a neuroscientist. She said at the beginning of the pandemic, she was living in Canada, and she had all these animals in her lab that she was testing on, and she said she was getting right into the meat of some kind of an experiment. She was a neuroscientist, and because they weren't allowing her to go to her lab, those animals, they are past their use date, like they were rats and stuff like that, so they're all dead now. And so she lost so much. Basically, she would have to restart it whenever she's allowed to do that again.
Governments have been, a huge detriment to scientific research.
Yeah, sure.
Over the years, and we've ended up in a situation where you can't trust a lot of what's coming out between governments and between corporations,
right? Well, because a lot of it's been funded by the state.
A lot of it's funded by the state, and a lot of it's
corporations
funded by corporations.
And whoever funds the quote unquote research then usually ends up getting the research they're looking for.
I forget what the statistics is, but it's something like a 60-40 split as far as whether or not research can even be duplicated, right? So, the scientific, scientific method, I believe, you're supposed to be able to duplicate, somebody else is supposed to be able to duplicate your results.
And get the same results.
And that's not the case for a big percentage of, papers that get published.
Well, it goes on to say, so depending on which side you're on, sorry, I read that in the middle of a sentence. It says, if you doubt his, so Fauci's, judgment personally, you must not believe in, quote, the science. Fauci went on to claim that all of the things he's talked about were fundamentally based on science. Let's put the weasel words aside and recognize that what he wants you to believe, that all his official policy recommendations, all the things we've talked about, quote unquote, were firmly proven effective through application of the scientific method, and it's demonstrably false. The most rigorous, most scientific studies show precisely the opposite. Fauci was a proponent of what has become to be known as lockdowns, the widespread closure of businesses and or stay-at-home orders for the general population. Dozens of studies show that this had no demonstrable effect on the spread of COVID-19.
Right, and now isn't New York City having drastic numbers of new cases of Omicron, even though they have all these vaccine passports and restrictions? I mean, they're one of the most heavily restricted cities in the United States, and they've got record levels.
Maybe to protect the reputation of his vaccines, that's why Fauci recently came out and said, oh, cases aren't the same thing as deaths. He didn't say those words exactly, but he was saying there are people who are in the hospital with COVID, but that doesn't mean that when they die, it's because of COVID. They just died with COVID.
Yeah, we saw the video of
recently
that.
admitted that. I mean, we've known that since the beginning of this pandemic.
He admitted that there was a small percentage of, well, he didn't say what the percentage was.
Yeah. We've been saying that for like, was it 2-3 years now?
Yeah, and he's finally now admitting, in one interview, which of course will be completely ignored by the majority of the, the propagandists out there.
Yep, I think he's just saying that to protect the reputation of his vaccine, because people are like, wait a minute, in New York City where they have a lot of people vaccinated, their cases are just going up and up.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
As one after another came out, Fauci went on talking about lockdowns as if the evidence was non-existent. Now
the evidence against them, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now there are studies being conducted every day on this or that aspect of COVID-19, and I'm sure Fauci and his supporters can produce links to some that support lockdowns. While there are no absolutes, here is a general observation. The most scientific studies, the randomized controlled trial studies with large sample sizes measuring results in the real world, tend to point towards the inefficacy of non-pharmaceutical interventions, NPIs. NPIs include anti-social distancing, masks, and lockdowns. Less scientific studies, those with small sample sizes or based on laboratory experiments rather than experience in the real world, tend to point towards efficacy. Remember the experiment on mannequins wearing masks? You get the picture.
No, I don't remember that.
And I have this little memory of that. I read this article before I brought it in, and I forgot to look it up because I have some memory of that, but I don't know what it is.
So he said that the big scientific studies of real-life applications of all these non-pharmaceutical interventions, masks, and
social distancing, lockdowns,
shows those things are ineffective.
Yep.
But yet the government gang continues to push them.
Because they can find links, or a study here or there that supports them.
Right. I mean, even if they can or they can't, they still just want you to believe. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, we know the masks don't actually prevent the disease from being spread, but you should wear it anyway, just in case,
Yeah, it's interesting how the selection bias plays out here. It's like, and I mean, this is something that probably plays out for everybody with an opinion, but it's particularly prominent here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We admit that the 6-foot thing was completely arbitrary. There was somebody came out and said that recently. Oh, yeah. This was totally arbitrary. We just picked a number, but you should still do it anyway, just because.
Just be safe.
We said so. Just be obedient, okay, people? Do what, quote unquote, the science says, and we are the science. This is what the government people want you to believe, and it is a sick illness of obedience and so-called authority. We're going to continue. You've got more to the story, Bonnie, on the way in hour 2, and you can join us and bring up anything. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. One of America's most beloved stars, the actress Betty White, has died at the age of 99. She was a pioneer in the early days of television and went on to find fame in the Mary Tyler Moore Show and then in the role of Rose on the sitcom The Golden Girls. She remained active in show business throughout her life. Indeed, the Guinness Book of Records says she worked longer in the TV industry than anyone else ever. She won 8 Emmy Awards and only this week features on the cover of America's People magazine, previewing what would have been her 100th birthday in 2022. Our US correspondent Simon Marks says she held an unparalleled place in American cultural history.
I think it's impossible to overstate how far and wide Betty White's loss will be felt across America this New Year's Eve. And it's not just due to her longevity in the very hard business of show business. It's because really of her fundamental character, the twinkle in her eye on display in her seemingly endless chat show appearances. Always funny, always generous, and absolutely beloved by generations of television viewers here. In many ways, she's American royalty, America's grandmother, great-grandmother even, and at a time when there is so little that people here can agree upon, their love for Betty White might just bring them together as news of her passing is digested with the dawn of the new year.
The most damaging fires in Colorado's history have forced thousands of people to leave their homes. The wildfires quickly spread through a suburban part of the state Thursday into Friday, with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. William Denslow reports.
According to officials, more than 500 homes as well as a shopping centre and hotel have been damaged by the wildfires, sweeping through Boulder County. Governor Jared Polis has declared a state of emergency, calling the fires a force of nature. Around 30,000 people in the towns of Louisville and Superior have been told to evacuate, and officials say injuries and fatalities are likely.
Lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked for proof that Prince Andrew has an inability to sweat. The royal is accused of sexually abusing Giuffre as a teenager, an allegation he denies. Here's William Denslow again from New York.
Virginia Giuffre alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew at properties owned by Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell, who was found guilty this week of grooming and sexually abusing young girls. The royal denies the claims and has argued that a medical condition preventing him from sweating contradicts Giuffre's story. Lawyers representing her in a civil case have now requested proof of Prince Andrew's condition. His lawyers say the request amounts to harassment and that Prince Andrew doesn't have such documents.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, closing out our week looking at the life and times of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the lion of South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle. When Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu were jailed by the country's white minority government, in the 1980s, Desmond Tutu became the international face of the struggle against apartheid. In October 1985, on a visit to London, he publicly chided then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, accusing her of siding with the apartheid regime. He called on her to change course and stop backing repression.
We need the kind of action which is going to end apartheid. Because, you see, my dear friends, we're laughing and so forth. But we're talking about issues of life and death. As I sit here, people are languishing in jail just simply because they are opposed to apartheid. People are being tortured. Children are being killed. And we're not playing marbles. If governments, Western governments think that we're playing marbles, then okay. But we're not going to remain unfree forever. And it's not a threat when we say we will remember who helped us. And I hope I'm around to do the reminding.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu. His body has been lying in state at St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town ahead of his funeral on Saturday. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. Famed actress Betty White has died at the age of 99. She was a megastar in the United States and across the world, acting in The Golden Girls, among many other award-winning shows and movies. Hundreds of homes have been destroyed in Colorado in the state's most damaging wildfires, with 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked Prince Andrew for proof he doesn't sweat. It's part of a civil lawsuit in which he's accused of sexual abuse. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
Following reports that local full-blown alcoholic Ken Matheson has such great friends that let him drink himself to death right before their eyes, the 32-year-old man spoke to reporters during a typical evening of binging with his closest friends.
Man, these guys are like brothers to me. I don't know what I'd do without them.
The chemically dependent man, who can reportedly always count on his friends to look the other way, facilitate belligerent behavior, and encourage his self-destructive impulses, informed reporters that the members of his tight-knit circle are, quote, the best buddies a guy could ask for.
Can you just shut the fuck up? Seriously. Just shut the fuck up. I lost back then. Keep going. What the fuck are you looking at? I love you, man. I love you.
Check this week's Onion Review for further developments.
I love you. Oh, God, I love everybody.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, kicking off the second hour here on this New Year's Eve episode of the show. Of course, we do this show live all 7 nights a week. So yeah, we're going to be here live on New Year's Day as well. We'll look forward to seeing you throughout the holidays, I guess, which are almost over. But we're always here, 7 days a week, 365 days per year, 7 to 10 at night Eastern Time. You're always welcome to join us as well. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
We're talking about, quote, the science. And what that is, because it's not actually science, it's a religious alternative. It is a secular religion, if you will, that is being promulgated by the state, which itself is a religion. It's being promulgated by the state's besties, the mega corporations like Pfizer and Moderna.
I mean, they're more than besties with Moderna. They're business partners.
Yeah, they all stand to benefit from this particular arrangement. The state benefits because, well, as you say, Bonnie, there's some evidence out there that they might be actually investors in corporations like Moderna.
And their vaccine specifically. Well, the mRNA technology specifically.
And, of course, the vaccine manufacturers have long been protected from any liability for their actions. That's not new. That's been the case with vaccines for a long time. So there's no liability for them making something that could possibly do harm to other people. The government gang, of course, promoting people inject this stuff into their veins without anybody really knowing what exactly it does. You just trust this mega corporation. It's basically fascism, and it is scary stuff that's been going on here. And they used, quote unquote, the science as their justification for all of this, when, as you pointed out, Chris, they've thrown out the scientific method here. They've thrown out the constant questioning, the constant testing and retesting, and groups trying to prove whoever it is that makes a claim wrong. That's gone.
I think more, it might be even more so that the studies are often faulty, and then there will be government officials who take and manipulate that as if it is, this is the fact, and it's not a fact. It's a
study.
A study, and you can interpret it, and often you can interpret it in various ways. But you will also then often find that those people who did the study will say, "No, that's not what the data shows."
Or even if that one study does show the data, a lot of times they'll just base it off one study, like the story goes on to say.
And where's this from?
The Foundation for Economic Freedom says, let's not forget that early in 2020, Fauci said a study based on a single case of asymptomatic spread of COVID-19 lays the question to rest.
One case?
What are you
can't even do
about?
a study. I mean, that's called a case study.
That's not even how that works.
Yeah. Right. You have to have a certain number of participants in order. I mean, the more participants in the study, the more generally considerable it is. And if you're just looking at one case, then that's just a case study.
It goes on and says, and guess what? It turned out the patient documented in the case had never been asked if she had symptoms. When it turns out she was symptomatic at the time of transmission, the study was unpublished. Subsequent studies failed to prove asymptomatic spread was significant. A December 2020 study looking at secondary attack rates within the same household, published right on the NIH Fauci's website, or Fauci's agency's website, says it's minuscule if it exists at all. Yet Fauci goes on talking as if this study doesn't exist. He has no choice. Without asymptomatic spread, there is no justification for lockdowns or mandating masks for asymptomatic people.
Yeah, well, there's no justification for it, I think, even if there is. Lockdowns should be a choice of the individual. If you're sick, stay home.
Yeah, look, and this is a thing. It's one thing to provide good advice. The problem is they're not providing good advice, and they're mandating it, which means they're going to use violence against you if you choose to disobey, whatever their edict is.
Yeah, I mean, just recently saw another person being arrested in a Burger King in New York City. There have been people arrested in Applebee's, Cheesecake Factory, Burger King now. There's been multiple. Panera Bread was another one where they arrested an Army veteran.
I'm a little mixed on that only because this is people violating other people's private property rights, which is not quite the same thing.
Yeah, but they're enforcing the government rules.
Yeah, that's true, and
it's the vaccine passport that they're arresting them for. They're
it is.
They don't have the vaccine passport, so therefore they're not allowed to eat.
Gotcha. I thought it was you were talking about voluntarily being being kicked out.
No, New York City.
Okay,
vaccine passport is mandatory for children, even. To ages 5 to 11, they have to have a vaccine passport.
Yeah, I know somewhere there was a story we covered where somebody was basically arrested for I think it was trespassing rather than the vaccine passport.
Correct. Yeah, that's how they're doing it. So because in order to arrest somebody over the vaccine passport, that would mean they would then get to challenge that in court.
And there probably isn't even actually a law.
But if, on the other hand, they simply say, oh, well, the restaurant said you have to leave. Well, why they asked me to leave? Because you didn't have a vaccine passport.
But the restaurants are required by law to force people to leave if they don't have a vaccine passport.
Correct.
And that's where the problem lies.
But the arrest and the charge is for trespass, because then the person doesn't leave because they're, understandably upset about not being served at a place where they previously have been served, and now they're not. And I suspect it's actually the restaurant that's going to take the heat if they serve people without vaccine passports. So it's probably the restaurant that's being targeted, sort of like in Keene, they used to target the business owners for the mask mandate.
Sure.
Same thing's going on in New York City.
And you can tell that it's the case that the businesses were reacting to the government now, especially because right now there's a mask mandate in Keene. However, it now targets the individual, not the business owner.
That's right.
And if you notice, there's no signs on a lot of the doors of businesses as unlike before, especially even places. Now there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still places that are very masky, and they are enforcing it of their own they want to enforce it, right? So it's not
a signal to a certain customer
group. Right, exactly. So it's not the case that there's definitely a mix, I think is the best way to describe it, of businesses that are doing it because they want to do it, and then there's others that are doing it only because the government is forcing them to.
And that's how it should be. Businesses should be able to make decisions for themselves, and their customers should also. But what more, Bonnie, from the story that you have from Foundation for Economic Education?
It says, on a rare occasion where the largely useless national media confronted Fauci with a question about how Texas could be doing so well 4 weeks after abandoning all COVID restrictions, he had no answer. Maybe, quote, maybe they're doing more outside, he mused. Then he went on recommending the same policies as if the question had never been posed.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's just the old propaganda trick from the Nazis, right? Their propaganda minister. You just keep repeating the same lie over and over again, and people will start to believe it. So somebody confronts you with something contrary to that. Okay, well, in the United States, you can't send them to a gulag quite yet, so you just simply ignore their statement as best as possible, and then you just push forward with the same old lies.
Wasn't New York or someplace actually setting up quarantine camps or something of that nature?
There's going to be a hearing perhaps next week.
On the
5th. There may be a bill, on January 5th in New York State, of a bill that was proposed a year ago. So it was proposed that they would then be allowed to, if this bill passes, just sweep up as many people as the governor deems necessary and put them into camps.
The governor deems a public health risk, which is so many, that just is so vague.
Yeah. And if you think it can't happen, well, there's other Western countries that are doing it. Australia, I believe, is one of them. Yeah. So it's thinking that it'll never happen here. It's already happening
here. In World War II with the Japanese internment camps.
That's right.
It wasn't public health safety.
But
it was just public safety.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that we haven't had concentration camps, before is ridiculous.
That would be false.
They even claimed that they did it for the Japanese people's safety.
Sure, and that's what they're going to say this time.
They're going to say the same thing again, I'm sure, especially with this COVID situation.
What else?
Says Fauci wasn't alone. When White House coronavirus advisor Anthony Slavitt was asked why lockdown and masked California and restriction-free Florida were having similar results in terms of COVID spread, he began his answer with perhaps the only honest words that have ever escaped a public health official's mouth. There is so much of this virus that we think we understand, that we think we can predict, that it's just a little bit beyond our explanation. Quote.
603-283-6160 is the number. If you want to join us, you can. Coming up, is Bitcoin worse than a Ponzi scheme? We can talk about that. Of course, you can bring up anything.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone? You forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection, you can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. If you want to join us on this live New Year's Eve edition of the show, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
As we continue here, we will take your calls and your thoughts about whatever you want. And we've been telling you about how Intercoin can help any business and organization launch their own currency or use tokens to raise some money. And now Intercoin has launched its investor token worldwide, and for the first time you can get it on an exchange over at xmarkets.com. That's exmarkets.com. All you need to sign up at xmarkets is an email address, so your privacy is kept intact. And you can then deposit dozens of different cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, trade them for Tether, and use that Tether to buy ITR, which is the Intercoin Investor Token. And you can learn more about the Intercoin vision over at intercoin.org and buy or sell ITR on xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com. You just might be advancing the cause of liberty around the world. Let's go to Oliver calling from somewhere incognito. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, I just called in for a last-minute holiday movie recommendation. For anyone who's skeptical of all the COVID hysteria, there's actually a recent movie that hits that spot. It's a new British film with Keira Knightley called Silent Night. It's like a dark comedy about the end of the world, and the basic idea is that there are all these storms of deadly toxic clouds spreading worldwide. Instead of a virus, it's poison gas. And in Britain, the solution they come up with is to send every British citizen a suicide pill so they can take it before the storms hit their location.
Was it good?
I thought it was decent. I mean, the story itself focuses on like a group of friends and family members who have gathered to spend one last Christmas together before taking the pill and checking out for good. But the big twist is they're trying to keep the kids in the dark about it. And when the cat's out of the bag, it forces all the characters to have some conversations about freedom of choice and about questioning authority and scientific experts, and just about being able to take your own risks in life. So I thought it was a really obvious allegory for the COVID stuff.
When was this made?
This just came out like a month ago, I think.
Wow. And you've already seen it, Chris?
I have. I think the best part of it was the end, but I can't give it. I would give it away otherwise if I told you about what it was. But yeah, it has a good twist at the end.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Like I didn't watch it from the beginning to the end exactly. I kind of skipped through parts of it. But yeah, it was. You know what it is? I think it was kind of in some respect, it was kind of boring. But in other respects, because it's like, it's like a video about like people just, it's like it's like watching it was almost like watching a home video, right? Like for a Christmas party.
It's a very British film with a very British sensibility of comedy. So
yeah.
And it's called Silent Night. Yeah, so 2021.
Yeah, like the Christmas Carol.
Very good, Oliver. Anything else you want to share tonight?
No, that's all. But it is a very dark comedy. So if the idea of parents giving their own kids suicide pills, that might not be for everyone.
Okay. I like dark comedies. Thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you, man. And Happy New Year as well.
My favorite dark Christmas movie is Holiday in Handcuffs.
Yeah, we watched that the other day, and it was a lot of fun.
It's funny.
Pretty ridiculous and fun. 603-283-6160, also ridiculous, sometimes fun. Sarah is on the line. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, I just want to bring up the attention to these prison bunk beds at our homeless shelter. So what they are is there's a bunk beds, the top and the bottom beds, and the top one has no guardrail at all.
Right. Yep.
You know, those lock rails.
Yep.
And I just think that we must be number one in like the worst homeless shelter in the nation.
You had called about this homeless shelter before, and if I recall correctly, you're saying what they're doing in Albuquerque is they're taking an old jail that has been closed down, and they're repurposing it into a institutional homeless shelter. And you're bringing up the fact that in jail, you don't get a little guardrail to block you from rolling off the top bunk and hitting the concrete floor, and you're concerned about that.
Well, you know, well, actually, I had to sleep on these for like a month or two.
Oh, you went to jail? Or were you at a homeless shelter?
No, I was at the homeless shelter because I was trying to hold on to the apartment, you know, because of that noise. So I was at this shelter. I was there for about two months, and I was terrified of falling asleep. And I met people that have fell off, hit their head, and fell off, and the whole attitude was, well, just be happy that you're not sleeping on the sidewalk on a cardboard or freezing to death. And so it's just too bad, you know?
Yeah, I can see why that's a concern for some people, especially I think the average person, to some extent, you know, you don't roll out of bed because your body would probably be aware
that I've just never even went close to rolling off a bed.
That could happen. I think most people wouldn't do that. However, if you are a drunken homeless person who's checking into the shelter for the night, 3 sheets to the wind, there's a good chance that you might roll out of bed.
But then again, my little sister, who's like a 10-year-old, she rolls off the bed all the time, like more than anyone else I've ever heard of.
Yeah, that's scary.
She just moves around so much in her sleep.
I think it tends to be more of a thing with little kids, like 3, 4, 5-year-olds. But usually the kids, you know, by the time they're 6 or a little bit older, they're grown out of the rolling over off the bed thing.
Well, it's definitely the less, I would say, preferred spot to be in a bunk situation in a jail. Is you don't want to be on the top bunk in general because there's a risk of that. It's low, but there is that risk. And then also it's a pain to get up there, and it's a pain to get down from there. It's just not as easy as just being able to lie down in the lower bunk. So Sarah, but there's nothing you can do about it, right? Besides maybe raise money to add, weld some steel on the side of these old jail bunks or something like that.
Well, you know, the thing is, I am doing something about it by talking about it on this radio station. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, but talk is cheap. You know, somebody would have to raise the money to actually go in there, hire a professional welder, and go into however many hundreds of these bunk beds that they have, and do that work. It can be done.
Or buy entirely new beds, which
that
still costs money.
Would be way more money. I mean, these things are like permanently installed on these walls. You know, it's not going to be easy.
They are gonna build that Gateway Center, and the voters, we have voted 2 times on the ballot of our city election that we want the bonds to raise the money for this shelter. So it took them like 4 years.
So you want to get a new shelter, is what you're saying? You want to replace the existing shelter with a new shelter?
Yeah, they already picked out a spot, and they're going to build it.
Okay.
They're going to turn
then
the
the problem will be
into the
solved
shelter.
at some point. Then, so you just have to be patient, and they'll probably have a better situation.
It's kind of sad that
future.
People will bring this up for homeless people, but won't bring it up for prisoners. A lot of people who are in jail for no reason that involves hurting another person, or just because they're just in there being held before they get proven guilty of anything. You know, it's just as sad that they have to sleep on a horrible mattress, on a horrible bed.
You're right about that.
But people only care about homeless people who don't work.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for the call, Sarah. I appreciate it. You're absolutely right about that, Bonnie, but people in jail are basically non-existent. No one cares about them with the exception of the handful of people in their lives that actually care about them. Otherwise, they all get treated as though they're a bunch of vicious criminals, even though the bulk of them have probably never actually harmed anyone else There's so many victimless crimes. More coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. One of America's most beloved stars, the actress Betty White, has died at the age of 99. She was a pioneer in the early days of television and went on to find fame in the Mary Tyler Moore Show and then in the role of Rose on the sitcom The Golden Girls. She remained active in show business throughout her life. Indeed, the Guinness Book of Records says she worked longer in the TV industry than anyone else ever. She won 8 Emmy Awards and only this week features on the cover of America's People magazine, previewing what would have been her 100th birthday in 2022. Our US correspondent Simon Mark says she held an unparalleled place in American cultural history.
I think it's impossible to overstate how far and wide Betty White's loss will be felt across America this New Year's Eve. And it's not just due to her longevity in the very hard business of show business. It's because really of her fundamental character, the twinkle in her eye on display in her seemingly endless chat show appearances. Always funny, always generous, and absolutely beloved by generations of television viewers here. In many ways, she's American royalty, America's grandmother, great-grandmother even. And at a time when there is so little that people here can agree upon, their love for Betty White might just bring them together as news of her passing is digested with the dawn of the new year.
The most damaging fires in Colorado's history have forced thousands of people to leave their homes. The wildfires quickly spread through a suburban part of the state Thursday into Friday, with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. William Denslow reports.
According to officials, more than 500 homes as well as a shopping centre and hotel have been damaged by the wildfires, sweeping through Boulder County. Governor Jared Polis has declared a state of emergency, calling the fires a force of nature. Around 30,000 people in the towns of Louisville and Superior have been told to evacuate, and officials say injuries and fatalities are likely.
Lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked for proof that Prince Andrew has an inability to sweat. The royal is accused of sexually abusing Giuffre as a teenager, an allegation he denies. Here's William Denslow again from New York.
Virginia Giuffre alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew at properties owned by Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell, who was found guilty this week of grooming and sexually abusing young girls. The royal denies the claims and has argued that a medical condition preventing him from sweating contradicts Giuffre's story. Lawyers representing her in a civil case have now requested proof of Prince Andrew's condition. His lawyers say the request amounts to harassment and that Prince Andrew doesn't have such documents.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We've been talking about, quote-unquote, the science, which is another name for a secular god that has been promoted by the people in the state. Of course, the state itself is a god to people. They don't realize that. They don't think about it that way overtly. But that's ultimately how it behaves.
Yeah, the state's trying to lend itself credibility by using science, quote unquote, to justify its actions, and it just doesn't.
Well, it's working very well.
I mean, it might be convincing people,
yeah.
but it's malicious. It's wrong. It's immoral.
I think most people believe at least that the state is a lot more powerful than it is. Like I caught myself doing it today, and then I caught myself doing it today, and then I thought about how I had done that, and I was like, I bet most people don't go down this thought pattern after they think something like this. Well, our friend was flying a drone, and I saw how you could see the whole neighborhood. I was like, wow, would Keene police ever shoot it down? And he said they wouldn't be able to. And I thought, wow, it's weird that my brain just immediately thought, the cops can get rid of your drone. When really, how would they do that? They'd have to shoot into the air in the neighborhood.
The reason they wouldn't do that is because that violates the FAA and federal rules, and it's a major crime to shoot down any kind of aircraft.
Yeah, well, whether it's a law or the fact that they don't have the power to do it, still, my brain immediately thought, you can't just do whatever you want. The cops will stop you.
Whatever you do, never shoot at a drone. It's like, that's
never.
Okay. So the seriousness of the way they take that crime so seriously, because they treat shooting a drone down as if you were shooting down a plane with 300 people on it. That's how they would treat that.
Plus what goes up must come down, and you miss, and that bullet's going to come down somewhere, and it's going to possibly hit somebody.
Sure, maybe there's a safety risk to it, but
now you're looking at a manslaughter charge.
Yeah,
in that case, right?
Yeah,
or involuntary manslaughter.
That's basically what they treat it as if you shoot at a drone. Right. So,
but when the police shoot at things, then they usually get exempted from all those laws. So. I think what you'd probably see them do is try to track it and then find out where it lands. They would probably try to eyeball it and follow it. Now, the drone can probably move faster than the police can, so
it just disappeared into the sky. I was like, wow, it's so tiny.
They would probably try to locate the drone operator.
That's what I'm saying.
And go after it that way, because then they wouldn't be violating the law. And
That said, as Bonnie pointed out, the drone basically can disappear. If it's so small, it can go so high, and then the odds that they're going to be able to track it meaningfully, unless they happen to be in the immediate vicinity of the operator and they can just see the person standing there, and then they'd get lucky. So there's that. The number again, 603-283-6160. We're talking about the so-called science, and Bonnie, you had more to share from the Foundation for Economic Education.
Yes, this article goes on. The problem with blindly trusting, quote, the science. The failure of scientists to be scientific is not a new phenomenon. Thomas Kuhn's The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, 1962, dealt directly with the tendency of scientists to reject evidence that contradicts the prevailing theory or paradigm. Quote, part of the answer, as obvious as it is important...
So wait, you're saying scientists are human and they also are subject to cognitive dissonance?
Yes.
Even though they should know better?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And, just biases.
Sure.
Part of the answer, as obvious as it is important, wrote Kuhn, a Harvard-educated philosopher of science, can be discovered by noting first what scientists never do when confronted by even severe or prolonged anomalies. Though they may begin to lose faith and then to consider alternatives, they do not renounce the paradigm that has led them into crisis.
Okay.
Kuhn's overall thesis challenged the prevailing understanding at the time that science proceeds in a linear fashion, with new discoveries incrementally adding to the accumulated knowledge that preceded them. Instead, argued Kuhn, science throughout history has featured a series of revolutions where paradigms like geocentric theory of the solar system or Newtonian physics collapsed under the weight of anomalies, evidence which contradicted the theory, and made way for new paradigms like the heliocentric theory of the solar system and Einsteinian physics.
And remember, those theories, some of them, were punishable by death if you opposed them.
Oh, yeah.
They were highly protected by the governments.
Yeah,
and
so not
churches.
only were they the scientifically accepted theory at the moment, they were also, as Bonnie says here, highly protected. So you couldn't, be a heretic against that publicly, or you would literally be burned at the stake, right?
Yep.
So, it's not that different today. You're just not as likely to actually be torched or set on fire.
There's probably, I don't know about the torching or the setting on fire, but they can get pretty close to that.
There's much nuance in Kuhn's argument. which his critics have tended to ignore. But one takeaway that we're seeing proved in real time is that these scientific revolutions are only revolutionary because of the tendency for scientists to cling to a theory regardless of evidence that refutes it. Kuhn argues that scientists will not abandon a disproven theory until a new theory is presented that they are convinced explains the evidence better than the old. What makes the new normal so strange is that a scientific revolution occurred with no anomalies. It was firmly established by a century of scientific research that suggested non-pharmaceutical interventions weren't effective in combating respiratory viruses. Indeed, Fauci himself initially repeated the established scientific consensus that lockdowns and mask mandates were not effective policy responses.
This was right at the beginning.
Yep.
This is like doing something just to show people that you're doing something, even though nothing that you're doing actually has any positive impact.
Virtue signaling.
Yeah, it's right. And it's like admitting, and the funny thing is, it's admitting that what you're doing has no impact, but we're going to use violence to enforce it anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
He even discouraged people from voluntarily wearing masks at the beginning.
At the very beginning. We're talking about like the early March kind of beginning, right?
I always thought that was so stupid. Like, it's like, okay, well, what happens if masks do turn out to help? You have no basis for saying that they don't help. And then it's like, okay, and then of course they did switch. So it's like, well, now nobody's going to believe you. And of course they probably shouldn't have in the end, but it's like, there's no basis for it. And if there's no basis for it, how can you trust anything else that comes out of this guy's mouths? And it turns out you can't.
Nope.
It says, then he, Fauci, and the rest of the government scientists did a complete about face, which is like a turnaround. There was no new evidence that motivated this. They simply abandoned the prevailing scientific consensus based on a desire to do something, even though the scientific evidence before, during, and after the outbreak of COVID-19 said what they wanted to do wouldn't work. As a result, there is now a new normal paradigm based on nothing. It should be noted that there were plenty of non-government scientists protesting vehemently right from the beginning. The authors of the Great Barrington Declaration...
Yeah, I remember that with like thousands of signatures.
Doctors' signatures.
Various different doctors and nurse types and others from around the planet.
Yes, but the doctors of it were already loudly protesting lockdowns as early as April 2020. Others contested asymptomatic spread, the mortality rate initially reported, and they were right, and the efficacy of masks. Here's the problem. This new normal paradigm can't collapse in the face of anomalies, no matter how numerous they are, because the anomalies are now simply ignored. Anyone who calls attention to them, no matter how credentialed or qualified,
is against the science.
Is systematically discredited. In such an environment, unsubstantiated...
Some of them were even fired, right? Like if you speak out...
Or if you didn't want to get the shot and you're a nurse.
Right, from inside the system, you're done.
I mean, they've gone to the extent of, like the earlier story that we talked about in the show, they've gone to the extent that they're censoring one-on-one text messaging.
Yeah, it's desperate.
And it's funny because it's like not even something that is widely used anymore. It's most of your messages end up going to, they're not even using you send a text message and you're not actually sending a text message. So it's encrypted and therefore it doesn't actually have,
they're just clamping wherever they can clamp.
Right.
In such an environment, unsubstantiated assertions like, quote, COVID-19 spreads asymptomatically and, quote, lockdowns and mask mandates work, continue to form the basis of policy. The same goes for vaccine mandates.
There's more, and you can share your thoughts with us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And a lot of this is absolutely signaling. You can share your experiences. What have you encountered out there with these people? It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open here if you want to join us. New Year's Eve episode of the show. The number, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Chris. We're talking about the so-called science, which is really code for the government religion, the government God, and Anthony Fauci saying he represents the science. If you're against what he says, you are against the science. And that's kind of the story that we're into here from the Foundation for Economic Education, pointing out that there has been all kinds of refutation of what the official government, quote-unquote, science has been saying. But it doesn't matter, because all they have to do is, if they're confronted with it, they can quickly acknowledge it and move on to going back to saying what they've always been saying.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. We're wondering about that. But masks work. Asymptomatic spread is real. 6 feet distancing works.
Yeah, that's all they have to do is just keep saying the same old stuff and people will believe it. The news media will just parrot whatever it is the government goons say, and they almost never ask any tough questions. So, they know if they ask too many tough questions, they won't get the interview. They won't get Fauci on their show, and then that means they won't get the ratings in their minds. So it's a completely controlled situation, but there's a little bit more to the story, Bonnie, that you wanted to share from Fee.
This next headline is The Price of Obedience. It's not that evidence against new normal science can no longer be found. Much of it is available right on the websites of the government agencies denying it.
Yeah, that's true.
It is simply a matter of saying no when governments and media demand you refuse to believe your lying eyes and obey. Obedience has a price. We will be feeling the economic effects of lockdowns for many years. An entire generation of children will suffer psychological damage from being forced to wear masks during their most formative years.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most sad parts about this whole last 2 years is what's happening to these kids. I mean, they're still, in a lot of these government schools, are still being mandated to wear masks, even though in most of the rest of the the area, there's no such mandate.
I don't know about sad, but insane is more. I feel like it's more appropriate.
I find it as to be both. I mean, it is insane what they're doing, and
depressing,
it's also really
maybe.
sad. I mean,
it could really hurt the kids. I mean, it could make them all just dumber for the rest of their lives.
It is definitely going to be an antisocial effect. I mean, to cut off humans, especially developing humans, from the ability to be able to see other humans' facial expressions. I mean, it's incalculable how damaging that can be to a young person.
Plus all the fear that they've been fed the last few years because what's it called? Adrenaline being in your blood system is really bad for you health-wise.
Kids are more likely to fall for this stuff than even adults. I mean, adults are gullible enough and believe the government gang enough, but when it's presented to children from as young as they've been doing this as young as like preschool age, right? Like putting kids in masks, forcing masks on kids, telling them that they need to be afraid. Oh, no, little Billy, you can't get close to Jimmy. You might spread a disease to him and kill his grandmother. And I mean, they're literally making kids still to this day. Just as of 2 weeks ago, I saw a video online of a school in Oregon sitting kindergartners outside in 40-degree temperatures during lunch
on these buckets,
and sitting them on buckets, like upside down, like paint buckets, where they had to sit there and eat their lunch in solitude.
Outside?
Yep. 40-degree temperatures. And I mean, they were under a pavilion or something like that, but it was still, cold and completely antisocial. You can't sit around a table and talk to people.
Logical or science.
Yeah, this is like being in prison, right? Now, we've always made comparisons between government schools and prisons, but it's more stark now than it's ever been.
Yeah, well, it says the damage to society as a whole from lockdowns, mask mandates, and antisocial distancing policies may be immeasurable.
I agree.
Neither can you simply go along to get along until things, quote, get back to normal. If
you go along to get along, you're part of the problem.
If and when the COVID crisis finally ends, there is a climate crisis already teed up to begin as surely as night follows day. It will feature the same breathless media propaganda and ignoring of contrary evidence as did the COVID crisis.
Yeah, well, they're already laying the groundwork for this. There already are people who are saying, they're like, the studies show that if you lock down for like the same way we did in 2020, that'll help the environment. So they're actually calling for lockdowns regularly as an environmental factor as far as trying to reduce the supposed pollution.
I have heard that, and I have a
hard conspiracy theory.
Imagining somebody actually coming out and saying that.
They're saying it.
I don't doubt it. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Instead of going into stores, sitting out in your car while it's running, waiting for somebody to bring you out your groceries or your Starbucks is much better for the environment.
Isn't there like way more we can do that doesn't involve lockdowns and masks and all this to help the environment? Like, shouldn't there be other things that we take, do before
I'm sure
we
they
go
have
to that
other
extent?
mandates. I'm sure they've got a whole list of other mandates that they want to shove down people's throats, but they're going to try to do as many of them as they can get away with.
Well, it says the cost...
They know that people will do lockdowns.
Says the cost this time will be significantly and permanently lower standard of living for you and your children. That's the price of obedience. Are you willing to pay it?
No.
I haven't paid it.
Nope. I have generally not been obedient over the last 2 years, and I mean over my whole lifetime.
I was going to say that might be a little bit of an understatement.
But yeah, especially in the last couple of years, and that's the thing. We've got to get the people who understand the value of disobedience together. We've got to get those people who love the ideas of liberty, understand disobedience, who are willing to actually stand up for freedom, and get them here to New Hampshire. I mean, there is just I'm sorry, there's no better option out there.
Yeah, we definitely need more disobedience across the board. I'm not particularly obsessed with like masks or not masks or any of this stuff, but it's just not that. I don't find it that interesting like of a topic. But I will say that like we do need more people to be disobedient about everything, like across the board. It's like,
well, I agree with across the board, but as far as I wish, I'm like you. I wish this wasn't a topic, but it is. I mean, we're dealing with a mask mandate right now here in Keene. They just passed it 2 weeks ago, so it'd be nice if we could just ignore it. But unfortunately, they want to keep literally shoving it in our faces. And as far as encouraging disobedience, people have to start somewhere. So if this is the issue on which some people take their first baby step into doing something that they're told not to do, or not doing a thing that they're told to do, then let them start here. It's a relatively easy place to do it.
One of my concerns is that people will do it here and then they'll stop.
Sure, of course. But that'll be true for most people.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I definitely it's a very I want to say it's almost a very optimistic view of things. To think that they'll do this and it's a starting point, and it is a starting point. The problem is, I think the reality is probably going to be they'll start here and stop here.
I think that's probably true for most people, but some people will, for the first time, say no. And they'll find out that it feels good to say no, and then they will continue to at least consider saying no in future
I hope so.
episodes. But again, that's why we still need to make a concerted effort to have that intentional migration of freedom-loving people. And it's, the Free State Project, for instance, over at Free State NH on social media, over at Twitter, they're doing a little recap of the last year and pointing out that 2021 was the biggest year on record for the Free State Project. It's now been around for 20 years.
Last year we had a record, and this year last year was amazing.
2020
is even bigger.
Yeah, so they topped 2020 and 2021, and it's probably going to be that 2022 tops 2021. And that's because people are still planning to move. Right? Like there's some people got to sell a house, they got to close a business. There's work to be done.
I can't believe how many people have moved this past, even just in the past 6 months, 6 to 8 months, 12 months. It's amazing. And we're talking, and I'm just looking at the people in Keene, right? People moving to Keene.
Yeah, and there's hardly anyone coming here by comparison to Manchester.
Right. It's like 23,000 people town. There's only so many jobs here, right? Like there's only so many people who can move here.
Well, right now there's a ton of jobs here because everyone's hiring.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, there's only so many careers. There's only so many
as far as like career paths,
big paying jobs.
Usually people will have to go where whatever their expertise is, if they're middle class or something like that. Unless they're like maybe a teacher or something like that, where the jobs are more readily available everywhere.
Well, Chris, going back to when you said it wasn't really sad that the kids have to wear masks, you were saying the other day that even when you were like 4 years old, you hated wearing tight clothes. Just put yourself in the shoes of a kid who hates wearing tight clothes, having to put a thing on his face, and his teacher grabbing his face and putting it back on when he takes it off. I think that's sad.
There's a video where that actually happens. It goes on for more than 2 minutes with this little kid, probably no more than 2 or 3 years old, does not want to put a mask on, and they are literally forcing it onto his face. I mean, it is sick.
I don't know. To me. I mean, I feel like to me at least it would be a kind of a little annoyance, and it would be a bigger annoyance if I had to do that every day, like going to school.
Yeah,
and that's why I think it's insane. But at the same time,
it's insane to put your kids in these schools.
I'm not sure the permanent damage that is. I feel like that might be a little bit more of an exaggeration. But then again,
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think you're underestimating that number. Here 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Hour 3 coming up. You can join us on Free Talk Live. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. One of America's most beloved stars, the actress Betty White, has died at the age of 99. She was a pioneer in the early days of television and went on to find fame in the Mary Tyler Moore Show and then in the role of Rose on the sitcom The Golden Girls. She remained active in show business throughout her life. Indeed, the Guinness Book of Records says she worked longer in the TV industry than anyone else ever. She won 8 Emmy Awards and only this week features on the cover of America's People magazine, previewing what would have been her 100th birthday in 2022. Our US correspondent Simon Marks says she held an unparalleled place in American cultural history.
I think it's impossible to overstate how far and wide Betty White's loss will be felt across America this New Year's Eve. And it's not just due to her longevity in the very hard business of show business. It's because really of her fundamental character, the twinkle in her eye on display in her seemingly endless chat show appearances. Always funny, always generous, and absolutely beloved by generations of television viewers here. In many ways, she's American royalty, America's grandmother, great-grandmother even, and at a time when there is so little that people here can agree upon, their love for Betty White might just bring them together as news of her passing is digested with the dawn of the new year.
The most damaging fires in Colorado's history have forced thousands of people to leave their homes. The wildfires quickly spread through a suburban part of the state Thursday into Friday, with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. William Denslow reports.
According to officials, more than 500 homes as well as a shopping centre and hotel have been damaged by the wildfires, sweeping through Boulder County. Governor Jared Polis has declared a state of emergency, calling the fires a force of nature. Around 30,000 people in the towns of Louisville and Superior have been told to evacuate, and officials say injuries and fatalities are likely.
Lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked for proof that Prince Andrew has an inability to sweat. The royal is accused of sexually abusing Giuffre as a teenager, an allegation he denies. Here's William Denslow again from New York.
Virginia Giuffre alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew at properties owned by Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell, who was found guilty this week of grooming and sexually abusing young girls. The royal denies the claims and has argued that a medical condition preventing him from sweating contradicts Giuffre's story. Lawyers representing her in a civil case have now requested proof of Prince Andrew's condition. His lawyers say the request amounts to harassment and that Prince Andrew doesn't have such documents.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, closing out our week looking at the life and times of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the lion of South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle. When Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu were jailed by the country's white minority government, in the 1980s, Desmond Tutu became the international face of the struggle against apartheid. In October 1985, on a visit to London, he publicly chided then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, accusing her of siding with the apartheid regime. He called on her to change course and stop backing repression.
We need the kind of action which is going to end apartheid. Because, you see, my dear friends, we're laughing and so forth. But we're talking about issues of life and death. As I sit here, people are languishing in jail just simply because they are opposed to apartheid. People are being tortured. Children are being killed. And we're not playing marbles. If governments, Western governments think that we're playing marbles, then okay. But we're not going to remain unfree forever. And it's not a threat when we say we will remember who helped us. And I hope I'm around to do the reminding.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu. His body has been lying in state at St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town ahead of his funeral on Saturday. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. Famed actress Betty White has died at the age of 99. She was a megastar in the United States and across the world, acting in The Golden Girls, among many other award-winning shows and movies. Hundreds of homes have been destroyed in Colorado in the state's most damaging wildfires, with 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked Prince Andrew for proof he doesn't sweat. It's part of a civil lawsuit in which he's accused of sexual abuse. There's more from us on Twitter @Feature Story. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
Saying that he has no idea what to make of the mixed signals, area man Pete Summers told reporters today he keeps getting ambiguous text messages from local woman Haley Mueller, claiming that she's not at all interested in him.
One minute she's like, I don't want to go out with you. And then she'll mention how she has to go hang out with her boyfriend. What am I supposed to do with that?
Summers, who first met Mueller at a friend's party last month, informed reporters that the 27-year-old's increasingly perplexing text messages have left him unable to ascertain whether or not she would want to date him. He also noted that Mueller's behavior at social gatherings was equally vague.
Last weekend, we were at a party, and every time I would go up to her, she just said, "Leave me alone." Then I text her the next day, and she totally doesn't even respond. She just needs to make up her mind and tell me what she wants. She hasn't answered my last 3 phone calls, so maybe I should go over there and make sure everything's okay.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and the number here, 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. You can take control of the airwaves as we kick off the third hour of this live New Year's Eve edition of the show. In the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
Coming up, the attack continues against Bitcoin as somebody at the Oxford University is claiming Bitcoin is worse than a Ponzi scheme. So we will get into that critique here in just a moment. But we were just talking about how freedom-loving people need to come together into the same place. And we're seeing that working here in New Hampshire. It's been an incredible success so far with thousands of people who love the ideas of liberty migrating here. Chris, you came up from New Jersey.
Yep.
I moved up from Florida. Bonnie, you moved up from Texas. And if you actually do care about liberty, if you understand the non-aggression principle, if you are willing to actually work for more freedom, to actually become active, if you're not already an activist where you are, to become active, then New Hampshire is the best place to be. And there's 101 reasons for that. You can go to 101reasonsfilm.com. You can watch a nice little hour-long documentary that goes over those 101 reasons. And by the way, that documentary was made in 2014 from a list that was compiled, I think, in 2002. So that list has been around for a long time. Some of these reasons that we're talking about are long-term, they're like permanently true about New Hampshire. There have been more reasons since then.
Oh, yeah.
And some of those other reasons are like the insanely great community of freedom-loving people and the amazing things that they can produce when they work together to accomplish things. It's been amazing what's been happening in just the last few years here in New Hampshire. But I came across a story this was a week after New Hampshire was named the #1 freest state in the Cato University study called Freedom in the 50 States. So we talked about this New Hampshire had led this particular study in the past. Florida had overtaken New Hampshire in the previous year. So in the 2020 episode or 2020 edition of this study, Florida had taken the lead. And that was because they changed the way they calculated the numbers, I guess, in this particular study.
In what way?
I don't know. I don't remember the details. They explained it at the time, but now New Hampshire has taken the lead again. And according to the authors in this study, and one of whom is the founder of the Free State Project, Jason Sorens, according to the authors of the study, they believe that some of the changes that were made this year, and the changes made this year were not included in the study because the study trails by 2 years. So the 2021 study that just got released this month only includes changes that happened in New Hampshire up through the year 2019, so to the end of 2019. So again, there's a 2-year delay. He said in the study that the changes made this year by some of the reps, like for instance, getting rid of I don't remember what the tax was. They got rid of some kind of tax. They
Meals
lowered,
and room tax?
No, they lowered that. They lowered that from 9% to 8.5%. Not a huge drop, mind you, but it's something. And then there were some other regulatory things like creating educational savings accounts here in New Hampshire, which is a huge deal for families that want to get their kids out of government school, but they can't afford to do it because they're already paying so much in property taxes. It actually cuts them a check and lets them use it in whatever kind of schooling situation they want to. They can take to a private school, a religious school. They can homeschool with the money.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a huge step forward. There's been a bunch of other things, right? Like little things too. Like they got rid of, I think you can now tint your windows more than you ever could in New Hampshire. And again, that was another thing from this year. So they said that they expect New Hampshire is going to pull ahead of the pack, and that Florida isn't going to be able to catch up.
Florida's going in the opposite direction, aren't they?
I mean, it's a race to the bottom for the rest of the states.
Right.
But
That's what I mean. Like,
people believe that Florida is getting freer and freer just because it's getting more and more authoritarian in a right-wing way, which is a huge misconception people often make. Like this past year, the governor tried to pass, I mean, it didn't pass, but the governor that everybody acts like is so great and freedom-oriented tried to pass something that would basically make it a felony to be a protester during and to, calling all protesters rioters and looters.
Well, he did pass... he did sign a red flag law, and people that care about gun rights don't like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and he did sign a. Let's see what else. He loves the police. This guy never saw a pro-police law that he didn't like. He also passed a $15 an hour minimum wage in Florida.
Yeah, this is like switching one king for. This is the difference between Republicans and Democrats. It's like switching out one king for another king, right? Yeah. It's just. I don't want another king, right? I want to get rid of the kings.
Exactly. But here's it's a bizarre story that was published over at WashingtonExaminer.com. Headline, New Hampshire shows how to advance freedom. Who wrote this article? Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project. William Ruger, who I believe works with Jason Sorens at the Cato Institute. Yeah,
is he related to the gun manufacturers?
I don't know, but he's the co-author of the Freedom in the 50 States report. So him and Jason Sorens are the two authors of that report. And the other author, Chris Sununu? He didn't author the report.
Wait, what?
He wrote this article. Chris Sununu, Jason Sorens, and the other guy from the Freedom of the 50 States wrote this short little article for the Washington Examiner about, quote, New Hampshire shows how to advance freedom.
Is this a different Chris Sununu than the governor
it's
of
the
New
governor
Hampshire?
of New Hampshire. So, yeah.
Well, he's probably just paying lip service because he's up for re-election.
That's the thing, Bonnie. And this guy, he is such a political snake.
Yeah.
He is.
On one hand, he wants you to think he cares about freedom. On the other hand, a year ago or a year and a half ago, he was a total lockdown maniac.
And he'll sick his police on anybody who publicly, disagrees with him outside his
He'll
house
arrest a 70-year-old woman if he needs to.
This guy plays all sides.
Right. So, but that said, let's see what they have to say. It's interesting that he teamed up with Jason Sorens to write this article. So what makes a state free? New Hampshire seems to be figuring it out. In the Cato Institute's latest ranking of freedom in the 50 states, the Granite State comes out on top for overall freedom, besting Florida, which ranked number 1 in the previous report. New Hampshire is now the first state to hold the top spot for both economic freedom and overall freedom simultaneously. One of the big advantages of America's federal system is the possibility of what political scientists call yardstick competition. Because states are free to try different approaches to a wide range of policies, they can compare the results, take notes, and adopt the policies that work best. Freedom works, and as it turns out, people want it. Studies show economic freedom increases economic growth. The public has also been voting for personal and economic freedom with their feet by moving from less free to more free states. For these reasons, New Hampshire and other relatively free states, such as Florida, Nevada, and Indiana, have a lot to be proud of. In recent years, New Hampshire has significantly cut taxes across the board, and just this year, it put the interest and dividends tax on a path to abolition in its latest budget proposal. So that was the tax I couldn't remember.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Wow.
I have no idea what an interest and dividends tax is, but they're going to get rid of it, apparently.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
New Hampshire has avoided a minimum wage, and, by the way, it's apparently the only state that doesn't have the minimum wage, and lets the free market dictate opportunity. The result is that almost no one earns the minimum, and wages have grown so much that household incomes in the Granite State are some of the highest in America. New Hampshire hasn't been lax on growing personal freedoms either. In just the last few years, the legislature has required criminal conviction before assets can be forfeited to the state in civil court. It has decriminalized marijuana and legalized sports betting. It also expanded, quote, conservative personal freedoms, such as constitutional carry, which is allowing adult citizens who own a firearm lawfully to carry it outside their home, concealed without a license. Because we already had open carry. That was already a thing. New Hampshire has also passed education freedom accounts, a school choice policy that empowers families of low to moderate income to choose educational opportunities that best fit the needs of their children. What are other secrets to New Hampshire's success? Taxes are low, and they keep getting lower. With the most recent budget signed into law, the minimum business tax threshold was raised to exempt over 30,000 small businesses from even filing taxes.
Wow, what's that number? Did they give a number in there?
You mean the total number of businesses that have to file taxes?
No, the threshold.
Oh, I don't know. It's not saying, but it's now saving another 30,000.
Oh, I really want to know now.
From having to file taxes. There's more, though. We'll talk about that on the way here, and the number is 603-283-6160. You can join us and take control of the airwaves here on the New Year's Eve edition. We're live on Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. It is a place to go if you want to learn about cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. You can click Get Started at the top of the page over at Bitcoin.com, and you'll find some introductory information there. You can, if you're pressed for time, just watch that first video, and you'll get down some of the basic concepts in 3 minutes of your time. But you might find it interesting, and you might want to dig deeper, and they let you do that there too. So get started over at Bitcoin.com. If you're not new to crypto and you want to get the latest news headlines, just go to news.bitcoin.com. They've got them there every single day, updated, I presume, more than once a day. It's just full of information at news.bitcoin.com. As we continue here with the strange puff piece written by Chris Sununu, the so-called governor here in New Hampshire, His Excellency, as they referred to him in his executive orders that he wrote, something like 70 or 80 or 90 or whatever executive orders in 2020. This
Mr.
guy,
Freedom.
Yeah. Now he's trying to rebrand himself back to being this freedom-oriented Republican guy.
These freedom measures that he's talking about passing have only happened in spite of him.
That's an interesting point. Some of these things were done because they put some stuff in the budget, basically. And they put this budget in front of Sununu, and it would have looked bad politically if he didn't support his own Republican Party and sign the budget. So he kind of had to. So he did. But now he gets to take credit for it. So that's what he's doing. He's running out in front of the parade here, even though it's the state representatives, the freedom-loving reps that actually helped make this happen, which they're in there, a lot of them, because of the Free State Project. But it's a strange article because it's co-authored by the Chris Sununu, the governor, but also Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project. And that's the first time that has happened before. There's never been a real teaming up like that between a Politico that high up in New Hampshire government and the founder of the Free State Project. So it's kind of interesting from that perspective. They're going over a short list of just some of the things that have been put into place just this year, including the educational freedom accounts, which are really interesting. Look up education freedom accounts or education savings accounts New Hampshire, and there's a really interesting, really well-designed website that kind of lays it out and explains it and tells you how to take advantage of it if you're a parent. Check that out. Like if you're interested in moving up here and you got kids, you don't have to send your kids to the government school, and you can actually get a check from the government to reimburse you basically for your property taxes, which is amazing. That you have to spend on education. So, I mean, it's not as good as abolishing government schools.
Yeah, I was going to say, but will it actually cover your property taxes, what they're giving out to parents?
I think it's intended to cover the schooling. I don't know. Obviously property taxes are going to be different based on the size of the house or whatever that you're living in. So I don't know.
I figured.
I think it's a flat amount. I think it's probably like $4,000 or $5,000 bucks or something like that. Yeah. But honestly, I don't know all the details about it. I don't have kids, so I haven't.
I guess it depends on the size of your property, how much you pay in taxes.
But I don't think that comes into play as far as what you get back.
Right.
So, but it's something, right?
Yep.
Like it's better than zero, which is what.
In the coming years, there should be legislation that focuses on giving people back money who don't have kids.
That would be nice.
How about we just abolish the taxes?
Abolishing schools would be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna need let's say another 100 or 200 Liberty reps, I think, in order to make that happen.
Yeah,
so
we're definitely going to need to dominate.
We got to have thousands more people move here. At this time there's about 40 plus Free Stater reps, and there's probably another few dozen that are friendly. That will vote with Free Staters more often than not. So we're close to, I think, 100 quote unquote freedom reps. They're not perfect. They're not right on it on everything, but A level, B level.
If you combine the freedom reps plus the ones that lean in that direction on some issues, absolutely.
On more issues than not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's probably a fair way to say it.
But we're still early. This the Free State Project just reached its 5-year move window goal last year.
Was it last year?
It was last February.
Oh, it feels like it was.
Yeah,
it feels like it was longer than that, but yeah.
You moved right at the beginning of that window, if I recall correctly, right?
I moved actually technically just after they hit 20,000 signers.
Yeah,
but I had my home. I had a bid on my house before.
Nice.
Just before the 20,000 signers were hit.
So they're going over just a short list here, and it's almost done with some of the things they've done here. So they got rid of the one of these business taxes, apparently. Income dividends, I think is what it was called. Yeah, interest and dividends tax. So that's on a, quote, path to abolition. I don't know what that means. It sounds like it's going to take some time. So I don't know how soon it's going to be abolished on that path. But they are abolishing it. They've lowered the meals and rooms tax by 5.55%. Now, again, that's symbolic.
5.5%?
5.55%. They lowered the meals and rooms tax.
So we're going from 9 to
8.5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's still not terrible.
It's still not as good as Massachusetts. I think their meals tax is only 5% or something.
That's probably true, but they also have a sales tax.
They do.
So,
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, I'd still rather have the 8 point whatever percentage rooms and meals tax than have a general sales tax.
There's an interesting thing that Keith Ammon, who's a Free Stater state representative, he posted on social media the other day.
I knocked on doors for him.
He's a good guy. Free Stater. He came out with a list of I guess it was a state agency that came out with this list, whatever the revenue Department of Revenue is. They came out with a list by town with the amounts collected of the meals and rooms tax, town by town. And the interesting thing was, every town, every city is up. So the amount of revenue, even though the percentage is down by 5%
they bring in more money as a result.
There's more revenue that has come in.
Yeah, this isn't the first time that people have pointed out that the more you tax people, the less revenue you get back in taxes.
They don't want to spend their money here.
Well, I mean, because you hide your assets better when you know that you're going to get taxed on it. Mm-hmm. And the more taxes go up, the more incentive you have to find ways not to pay those taxes.
But the weird thing is, 5% is such a piddly amount. I mean, it's barely even worth talking about.
It is, but it has a major impact.
But it's hard to believe that people would even notice. I mean, it's just so small. the difference, like, do you think people are actually aware of this? Because from what I know, from what I've heard, some businesses haven't even heard about it.
Yeah.
Like, there's been some people who've gone out to eat and have calculated the tax on their bill and brought it to the attention of the business owner saying, hey, you're charging too much.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's very interesting. I'd like to hear more about what went into that. And was it more than just the 5% that factored into why they collected more? Or is it just because of COVID? Maybe more people are eating out this year than the last year. Either way, it was kind of like an interesting thing.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can think of maybe is that if there were more deliveries, the bill would have gone up because of like fees for delivery or something, and then maybe that gets taxed.
Can they tax that?
I don't
think they can.
I'm not sure.
The state, they say, is also highly decentralized from a fiscal standpoint, with nearly 3 competing local jurisdictions for every 100 miles, giving residents the option of voting with their feet without having to move to another state. Government consumption is low at only 7.9% of the economy. We got more coming up here about some of the things that are making New Hampshire pretty different from the competition. This is Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. One of America's most beloved stars, the actress Betty White, has died at the age of 99. She was a pioneer in the early days of television and went on to find fame in the Mary Tyler Moore Show and then in the role of Rose on the sitcom The Golden Girls. She remained active in show business throughout her life. Indeed, the Guinness Book of Records says she worked longer in the TV industry than anyone else ever. She won 8 Emmy Awards and only this week features on the cover of America's People magazine, previewing what would have been her 100th birthday in 2022. Our US correspondent Simon Mark says she held an unparalleled place in American cultural history.
I think it's impossible to overstate how far and wide Betty White's loss will be felt across America this New Year's Eve. And it's not just due to her longevity in the very hard business of show business. It's because really of her fundamental character, the twinkle in her eye on display in her seemingly endless chat show appearances. Always funny, always generous, and absolutely beloved by generations of television viewers here. In many ways, she's American royalty, America's grandmother, great-grandmother even. And at a time when there is so little that people here can agree upon, their love for Betty White might just bring them together as news of her passing is digested with the dawn of the new year.
The most damaging fires in Colorado's history have forced thousands of people to leave their homes. The wildfires quickly spread through a suburban part of the state Thursday into Friday, with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. William Denslow reports.
According to officials, more than 500 homes as well as a shopping centre and hotel have been damaged by the wildfires, sweeping through Boulder County. Governor Jared Polis has declared a state of emergency, calling the fires a force of nature. Around 30,000 people in the towns of Louisville and Superior have been told to evacuate, and officials say injuries and fatalities are likely.
Lawyers representing Virginia Giuffre have asked for proof that Prince Andrew has an inability to sweat. The royal is accused of sexually abusing Giuffre as a teenager, an allegation he denies. Here's William Denslow again from New York.
Virginia Giuffre alleges that she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew at properties owned by Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell, who was found guilty this week of grooming and sexually abusing young girls. The royal denies the claims and has argued that a medical condition preventing him from sweating contradicts Giuffre's story. Lawyers representing her in a civil case have now requested proof of Prince Andrew's condition. His lawyers say the request amounts to harassment and that Prince Andrew doesn't have such documents.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yeah, it's Free Talk Live. The phone number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And we are looking at a strange article written for the Washington Examiner by Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, and Jason Sorens and William Rucker, who are the authors of the Freedom in the 50 States study. And it's all about how New Hampshire is a quote-unquote free state. Now, that's not true, okay? That's not true at all. New Hampshire is not totally free. There's a lot that needs to be done here. And even the Freedom in the 50 States article admits that, right? Like, even though New Hampshire's number one, that just means it's the least oppressive cancer.
Calling New Hampshire a free state is... it's a joke. I mean, don't get me wrong. It might be the best place in the world, but it's still terrible. Yeah. And we have a long ways to go before, I would say it's anywhere near being a free state. What the difference between New Hampshire and everywhere else is that there's no other place where people are moving.
Correct.
For the purposes of changing the system.
Yes, there are people who are moving to places like Texas and Florida. In fact, there was a study recently showing
not to make it more free though, and that's important.
That's
here.
That's the key. Is if you move to Florida or Texas, you're just going somewhere warmer where it's maybe not as bad as where you're leaving.
Actually, it's extremely warm in Texas, so you're going to be oppressed either way, either by cold or by extreme heat and humidity.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing. They're just moving to a place that's just not as bad as California, just not as bad as New York.
Right. But it's still going in the wrong direction, so it's still going to end up there anyway.
Yeah, in fact, speaking of that, I found another related story here. I forget who, somebody linked to it online. Where did it go? I apologize. I thought I had it pulled up, and I don't. There was something about this Florida governor who passed a very restrictive bill. We were talking about how he passed the red flag rules, and there's a bunch of other things that he's done. But one of the other stories about him is very similar to that New York story that we were just discussing a few segments ago, where on January 5th, they're going to be looking at possibly making it so the New York governor can just put people into quarantine camps. And the governor of Florida apparently already passed that.
Whoa, for people who are public health risks or something else?
Yeah, supposed public health risks, and like I said, I had it pulled up, and I don't know where it went to, so I'll see if I can find it again.
I thought New Hampshire was bad in this regard, but not anywhere near like that. At least here, we did get some of that money. I believe we got them to turn down $27 million, and then they ended up taking $24 million in the end. So that's still a little bit better than it could have been.
I guess that's true.
That's federal funds that the federal government was trying to force states into passing certain policies and things at the state level that they don't otherwise have the authority to do. So
I guess that's a good way of looking at it. It is still a win because without people pushing back, they would have taken the full $27 million easily. Yeah. So at least we fought back. What is $3 million or something?
I mean, we kind of knew they were going to do it anyway, and just because they turned it down a couple times doesn't mean it wasn't going to happen. But I think we were successful a little bit. It just wasn't to the degree that we would have liked it to have been.
Okay, I found it. According to lorficweb.com, Governor Ron DeSantis signed Bill SB 2006, and they link to it, which allows for the state health officer to forcibly vaccinate citizens. This bill prohibits vaccine passports, but snuck in a clause to allow forcible vaccinations, which is buried in the bottom of the bill. So the bill was ostensibly about preventing vaccine passports, and I'm sure it got celebrated for that. He's preventing vaccine passports, but they didn't read the whole thing, because the bill says that the governor can order an individual to be examined, tested, vaccinated, treated, isolated, or quarantined for communicable diseases that have a significant morbidity or mortality and present a severe danger to public health. That sounds like the exact wording from the New York bill right there. Individuals who are unable or unwilling to be examined, tested, vaccinated, or treated for reasons of health, religion, or conscience may be subjected to isolation or quarantine.
Whoa.
You know, this so reminds me of the racist policies that used to exist in regards to people coming over the border from, I believe it was Mexico, to the United States. And there was no basis for the basically what they would do is they would take people and bathe them in gasoline, forcefully bathe them in gasoline. And there was no basis for that.
Wow.
It wasn't like, oh, this is gonna, somehow make you, safer for the rest of us in the United States already. It was purely a racist sort of thing. And it's a very similar sort of situation here. There's no basis for these, forced vaccinations. It's not killing a substantial, percentage of the population or
not at all.
Like that.
But they're acting like it is.
Right. But they're acting exactly like it is. And this is a means of oppressing a minority who are speaking out on it, regardless of whether or not you even are really opposed to it. The vaccinations in general. So
a little bit more from this bill that he signed. Quote, examination, testing, vaccination, or treatment may be performed by any qualified person authorized by the state. If the individual poses a danger to the public health, and remember, public usually means government, so keep that in mind. The state health officer may subject the individual to isolation or quarantine. If there is no practical method to isolate or quarantine the individual, the state health officer may use any means necessary to vaccinate or treat the individual.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is disturbing stuff. It starts here.
That's Florida for you, folks.
Right. It starts here, but where does it end? Are they going to start? Are they going to bring back? I'm trying to think what they call that.
What are you describing? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Women, babies.
Prohibition?
No, they used to forced women forced sterilization.
Oh, okay.
Are they going to bring forced sterilization back next? Where does this go if you allow this? Okay, when there's no serious, health impact for the vast majority of people, what's next? Where are they going to take this? The government should have no say in your, health decisions.
Absolutely,
that's something that is between you and your doctor, and not anybody else.
Scary stuff. So back to the story here from the Washington Examiner, written by Chris Sununu and Jason Sorens, the governor of New Hampshire and the founder of the Free State Project. There's the final part of this is all about how great Chris Sununu is. So he actually wrote an article about himself here. Quote, leadership is also important. Last year, the Cato Institute named Governor Chris Sununu as the most fiscally responsible state leader in the nation. As this most recent report shows, the people of New Hampshire continue to benefit from the freedoms that a limited government philosophy can bring about.
That's crazy that he's getting credit for something just because he didn't strike down what his representatives voted on.
This is kind of interesting because I don't know. And honestly, I have no idea as far as what Chris Sununu's policies are. Like, I could probably believe that he's like the best in the country, but that doesn't mean that he's
not awful.
Not awful still, right?
He's a little tyrant, and he is arresting peaceful people for peacefully sitting in a room where he was also in the same room. I mean, it was ridiculous. 9 people were arrested at a meeting where they were just sitting there.
Did we talk about how most of those people have been found not guilty?
Oh, you're talking about the Newfields 9. That's a different group of 9. You're talking about the people who are protesting outside of his house.
Yeah, I'm talking about the governor's house.
He's arrested, close to 24 people this year.
Yep.
Peaceful people who did nothing to hurt anyone else.
Yeah, we can talk about that coming up. We did talk about it after Footloose Frank was found not guilty, and the rest of them have now been found not guilty.
Yeah.
That's the news from this week. But the final sentences here in this story. National politics is broken. Exploding debt, growing inflation, and an incompetent pandemic response are just a few of the symptoms. But in many states, we're seeing a different approach that bears real results. D.C. should get out of the way and let states innovate. The way to create growth and optimism about the future is to unleash citizen potential with a light regulatory touch. Well, I don't agree that there should be any regulations from the government, but this is, again, from Chris Sununu. States such as New Hampshire are showing the way. So, interesting propaganda piece written by the governor and the founder of the Free State Project. We'll share that on our social media over at social.freetalklive.com, and the phones are open for you, 603-283-6160. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Porkfest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power. But there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Phones are open here in these remaining moments of the radio show, Free Talk Live, but we will have our internet-only episode starting up about a half an hour after we finish this radio show, so we'll start it at around 10:30 Eastern Time tonight, and we'll keep it going through to midnight, a countdown to the new year with you here in the Eastern Time Zone with me, Ian.
And me, Bonnie.
And Chris.
Chris, you won't be joining us for
I won't
midnight.
be.
You've got plans.
I got stuff to do tonight.
That's okay. You're a busy man. You got you got your own show to do tomorrow.
I do. I do like 6 hours a week of a podcast and a radio show. So
right, you host Freedom Decrypted, which folks can go find at freedomdecrypted.com. And they can watch archives there. Of course, you've been doing it, 3 years now, something like that?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's a great show. It's a tech-oriented show or it is a tech show for liberty-minded people. So
yeah, and it's once a week. It happens Saturday, starting at about 5 o'clock Eastern Time. You can watch it live if you want, or listen. There's also podcast version of the show. So if you don't need to watch the show.
Nah.
Sometimes you put some graphics up, but I think it's
it's very heavily
it's audio friendly for sure.
Yeah.
So head on over to freedomdecrypted.com for more of Chris. As we head into the new year tonight, we're going to do, of course, we'll do open phones during the after show on Freer Talk Live as well, in case you want to call in. And we are not subject to FCC rules.
Yes, it's more fun.
Freer Talk Live, so you can say more stuff. But let's go.
It's funny because I don't cuss anyway, really, on the show.
So you should start.
It's a bad habit, because then you might make a mistake.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
actually do it on the air.
On the, radio.
So let's go to Joe. He's on the line in Maryland. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, Happy New Year,
Hey,
Ian.
Joe.
Happy New Year, Bonnie, and Happy New Year, Chris.
Thanks. Same to you.
Governor Ron DeSantis is an idiot.
Okay.
You check the CDC report. Now, this isn't made out to everybody to get it. I was able to get it. December 10th, and they will tell you that 75% of the people who are getting the Omicron virus have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on where you look, I've seen numbers up to 95% of those people who are hospitalized are vaccinated.
I don't know what the numbers are, but I am aware that it's kind of like not.
It's astronomical.
Everyone seems to be agreeing that it is affecting more vaccinated people than other variants.
I mean, my understanding is it's spreading faster, but it's not as bad. Like, it doesn't make you as sick. So
yeah, some people are saying it's a lot like a cold.
Yeah,
which makes sense because the cold is a coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you something about the science side of it.
Okay.
All the other viruses were done up and researched and made, and they were done and with at least 5 years of study. This was done with 5 months. Now, do you remember when we had the bird flu?
Sure.
Okay. They did another study, and I think it was President Ford said, let's get a vaccination for this, and we'll hurry through it. I think they did a study of a couple thousand people, and 450 got sick, and 35 died. They said cut it there, and you never heard another thing about a vaccination with the bird flu. So these nitwits who are saying, because I got a letter, I'm on disability, and they said, you should get vaccinated and everything like that. And when I was in the physical rehab after my surgery, they were telling me, you got to get a vaccination. I said, oh, no, I don't.
Are you talking about this time? You're saying recently that happened to you?
Yeah, recently.
Mm-hmm.
I called you up and told you I haven't called for like 8 months, 17 days because I had back surgery and I had a pipe put in my back, and I can't walk, and I'm bedridden right now. So I'm really appreciative of your good show.
What happened when you told them no? I mean, you're sitting there in a hospital bed. They said you have to get vaccinated.
I went and explained it to the doctors and the nurses about everything, and oh man, they just looked at me and ran out of the room. And they even had people come in on the side and say things to me. And then I had some of the staff say, man, you know what you're talking about, because I had a friend who got really sick and now can't walk and stuff like that. I had another friend who died after, different people were telling me all this kind of stuff.
I can just imagine
I was the doctor inside there.
I can just imagine the disgust that must have been on the these professionals' faces when you said no.
I'm glad that you stuck up for yourself.
Oh yeah, I told them off for a lot of medical things. They dropped a 300-pound machine on my foot.
Oh,
here's a good story for you. They were all, "Oh my God," and I said, "This is killing me," and I pushed it off my foot.
Wait, the doctor?
And I said, "Oh my."
At the
What's
hospital? They dropped a machine on your foot at the hospital?
Yeah, at the rehab place, the physical therapy people.
Oh, wow.
So, listen, this is great, right? Not for me because I'm still suffering. But so they couldn't move. So I pushed the thing off my foot, and they go, "Oh, my God, it's bleeding." And they didn't say anything after that. I said, "Look, why don't you," there were 3 of them there. I said, "You take my sock off and press on the wound. You go tell a nurse, and you bring me some gauze, some tape, and some peroxide."
Wow,
They were
you
just
had to tell medical.
standing there in shock.
I had to tell them what to do. Yeah, because
That's
they're a bunch of millennials, and they were like, "Oh my God,
Oh, wow.
what do we do?"
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like they were, they realized they did bad and that they were thinking about their.
They're all afraid of getting fired.
Yeah. I could definitely see. I would hate to be that person. I mean, and I could see something happening too, just be an accident or something like that. And it's like, what do I do? You know, it's like.
Yeah, before my accident, I was a pretty bad dude and everything like that. So I don't fall under pressure and stuff like that. So even though it was killing me and it was bleeding all over the place, I had to tell them all what to do.
Joe, anything else you want to share from your experience?
Yeah. Well, I told them that they should either give me a tetanus shot and put me on a pill antibiotic and things like that, and they didn't do it for 2 days.
Wow.
And then they x-rayed it and said, "Oh, you have an infection in your foot. So you have to be hooked up to an IV for 2 months and have antibiotics pumped into you."
So was this the VA?
I wasn't a happy camper. What's that?
Was this the VA?
No, this
just a hospital.
Was at the place that it was a rehab place from the hospital because I couldn't move or anything because I had back surgery, and so I had to have rehab.
Are you still in the hospital?
Oh no, I'm home. I'm home.
Okay.
They bought me a hospital bed. I got a $30,000 electric wheelchair.
Wow.
No kidding either. This thing's built like a tank.
You're on the mend, basically. You're still kind of out of commission, but getting better.
I can't walk or anything like that.
Well,
And
I
I'm
wish
not
you the
really
best. I thank you for the call tonight, Joe, and Happy New Year to you. Thanks.
Okay, and mention that site that I can go and check you guys out at 10:30. I'll call you back.
It's watch.freetalklive.com. Watch.freetalklive.com. Thanks, Joe. The number here is 603-283-6160 if you want to join us. By the way, Freedom's Phoenix is a liberty-oriented news aggregation site. If you want the newest and freshest stories and perspectives on current events from those who value liberty, freedomsphoenix.com has it. You can enjoy their daily dispatch. It's a great way to stay up to date on science, technology, historical findings, liberty news, government overspending, and the rise of the police state. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com, freedomsphoenix.com. Bonnie, you've been picking out some quotes, some classic quotes from our friend Nobody, who sadly is prohibited from speaking publicly after some ridiculous bail conditions in the Crypto 6 case, which you can learn more about the Crypto 6 over at thecrypto6.com. But unfortunately, he's not able to join us on the air due to the federal government. But that doesn't mean that you can't find some classic quotes from him from various different sources. And you've been doing some digging, and here's a quickie from Nobody. Quote, "To me, liberty and decency are synonymous."
Yep. It's not very decent to try to control other people and, impose your will on their lives.
That's true, and I think that to take it a little bit further, a lot of people will say, oh, libertarianism, it's only the non-aggression principle. And yeah, that is the principle that underlies libertarianism, but that's not good enough for a good society. You have to be decent to other people. You have to be a good person. You have to not be an a-hole.
Yeah.
You have to actually treat people with respect and kindness and compassion.
The non-aggression principle is just one.
It's a building block.
It's like the minimum. It's like the minimal threshold that you should have value-wise.
Correct.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't have other values as well.
Yep. I think that's one of the most important things to get out there. And there's just so many libertarians that they focus exclusively on the non-aggression principles. Like, that doesn't make you a good person.
No.
You can totally be an a-hole and still adhere to the non-aggression principle.
And we got people like that too.
There are people like that in the
unfortunately in our community.
But yeah, being decent is certainly important, and he says they're synonymous. I gotta say, I agree with that. So miss you, nobody. I hope you're having, if he's out there, I hope he's having a good New Year's Eve. And
I hope so too.
Be back at 10:30 Eastern tonight at watch.freetalklive.com. For the rest of you, Happy New Year. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191.